Chapter 230. Of course, those wild fruits were not taken by Qin Tian to feed to the pigs. Moreover, her family did not raise pigs. This fruit, which was called wild plum by Fang Yen, was washed with spring water, and with a crunch sound he took a big bite and chewed it in his mouth. A sour and astringent juice immediately flowed into his mouth, and then spread to his internal organs. At that moment, his body would shiver a few times, and his body would shake non-stop, as if someone had poured a basin of ice water on him in the winter. When he gradually got used to this taste, his mouth would also regain its feeling. The sourness was still the same, but there was a faint sweetness, which made people feel refreshed. On a big stone, Fang Yen and Qin Tian were eating this wild fruit. This kind of wild plum should be eaten with steak. Fang Yen said. If I knew this, I would have listened to them and bought a piece of steak here and picked a few wild plums and washed them. A mouthful of greasy beef and then a bite of this sour wild fruit. The taste must be very good. It's a pity that I didn't know there was such a treasure land, and such a celestial fruit in the world. Qin Tian swallowed the flesh in his mouth, looked at Fang Yen and said, even if you knew there was such a treasure land and such celestial fruit in the world, if someone asked you to pack it and give up your seat, you would not pack it and give up your seat. Fang Yen, you are very arrogant. More arrogant than you? More arrogant than me. Fang Yen smiled and said, Qin Tian, I know you are smart, so I can't tell you to study hard and not waste time. I know you are rich, so I can't tell you to work hard for your future and future. To be honest, I am under a lot of pressure as your teacher. Because I found that I really have nothing to teach you. What I have, you have. What I don't have, you also have. A student is so much better than a teacher. This is a disaster for a teacher. Although I am not your teacher in reality, I am your teacher in name. So, you have to respect me and I will love you. Teachers and students should be like this and only like this. Do you understand what I mean? Fang Yen shook his head with a smile and said, you are so smart, you will definitely understand. Fang Yen felt that there were some things that he should make clear to Qin Tian. Even if she was not a qualified teacher, Qin Tian was not an ordinary student. However, a teacher was a teacher and a student was a student. From his standpoint, he would choose to keep a distance from these students. It was for this purpose that he agreed to accompany Qin Tian for dinner. Qin Tian stopped chewing. He threw the half-eaten wild plum into the canyon and walked to the stream to wash his hands. She squatted beside the pool and looked at Fang Yen, who was not far away. She asked, Fang Yen, do you think I will listen to you? Fang Yen was stunned. He thought about it and answered honestly, no. Correct answer, Qin Tian said. Fang Yen felt very helpless. All the words he had said just now were all for nothing. Fang Yen, you have your excuses to run away. I have my reasons to persist. Qin Tian easily resolved the dilemma that Fang Yen had put out. She had drawn a clear line between them and each other. In her eyes, this was not a big deal. I know that my birthday is the most important day in a girl's eyes. Dragging you out to eat and chat has brought you a lot of pressure. You are worried that you will be attacked and criticized when the matter is exposed. You are afraid of the rumors of the world. You want to maintain your current state of mind and live a comfortable life. I can understand all of this. I don't want others to celebrate my birthday with me because I don't like the false flattery and the illusory luxury. I am tired when others are tired. Why make things difficult for others and myself? I don't want to celebrate my birthday alone. Although this day is no different from other days, I still hope that it can be a little different. I don't have any friends in Huacheng. You are the first person I thought of. I didn't tell you that today is my birthday because I don't want you to think about the age gap between us. I don't need you to give me a gift. You coming to celebrate my birthday with me is already the best gift. Saying so much is really affecting my goddess image. But I want to tell you that I am happy and I have no regrets. Please enjoy it. The next sentence made Fang Yen jump in anger. He wanted to jump off the big rock he was sitting on and die. Qin Tian glanced at Fang Yen lightly and said, because objection is invalid. This was Qin Tian. No one could change what she had decided. You could say that she was stubborn, unruly, or even that she didn't know how to love herself and didn't care about others' feelings. But she was Qin Tian. She had countless strengths, but she also had many weaknesses. Others called her a goddess, but she would smile when she was happy and throw things when she was angry. She was a living little girl who looked forward to some changes and longed for some romance. Love or not, it was all up to fate. Suddenly Fang Yan's scalp tightened. His body suddenly pounced towards Qin Tian, who was standing by the stream not far away. Like a goshawk hunting a rabbit. Qin Tian was shocked. Just a few words, why was he so angry? Plop. Fang Yen hugged Qin Tian and the two of them fell into the stream. Boom, A black bird flying above Qin Tian's head suddenly exploded where he was standing. There was a rumbling sound and flames were everywhere. What was more terrifying was that the black bird's body exploded. Balls of green liquid splattered everywhere. Anything that came into contact with the green liquid was immediately burned into black charcoal. From this, it could be seen how shocking the destructive power of the poison was. If Fang Yan hadn't pushed Qin Tian away in time, the charming Qin Tian would have been roasted into a small piece of charred bone. Fang Yan and Qin Tian's bodies sank to the bottom of the stream. A few seconds after the explosion sounded, they floated up from the water. After looking around and finding no danger, he pulled Qin Tian up from the bottom of the water. Qin Tian was pushed into the stream by Fang Yan without any defense. Moreover, his back was facing the ground. His mouth and nose were continuously swallowed several mouthfuls of water. After being pulled up, he began to cough violently. The clothes on her body were wet, and it was even more crowded around her exquisite body. There were also a few parts of her body exposed. Fang Yan quickly looked away. He took off his coat, unscrewed the water inside, and draped it over Qin Tian's shoulders. He looked at the blackened grass and stones, and then at the few balls of green liquid floating on the water. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. If the liquid had passed through the water and dripped onto the two of them, wouldn't the consequences be disastrous? They should have a backup plan, Fang Yan said. He grabbed Qin Tian's arm and said, "Let's go back to the Zhang Yuan restaurant." The nearest building was the Zhang Yuan restaurant. There were many people there and presumably the killers wouldn't dare to be too unscrupulous. If they wanted to run down the mountain, it would create more space and opportunities for the killers to attack. Qin Tian didn't panic, nor did she resist. Her eyes were just able to open. She just quickly ran to the foot of the hill under Fang Yan's lead. Crack. A crisp sound was heard. Qin Tian frowned slightly and said, "The heel broke." In order to have a romantic birthday and to make Fang Yan feel stunned at first sight, she wore a beautiful dress with high heels. Now that the heel of the high heels was stuck in a crack in the stone, it was naturally difficult for her to run. Fang Yan didn't have time to help her change her shoes and rub her feet. He quickly turned around, carried Qin Tian by the waist, and rushed to the foot of the mountain with his low body. If he were alone, he would have 10,000 ways to solve the problem. However, he had Qin Tian in his arms, so there was only one way to solve the problem. Escape. Bang. A big stone on his left was smashed, and a fist-sized stone was blasted away. Sniper. There was a sniper. Fang Yan didn't dare to be careless, nor did he dare to take a straight path. His body swayed left and right and his route was drunk and sweaty, but he ran as fast as a rabbit. Bang. Another stone was blasted away where Fang Yan had just landed. Fang Yan didn't have a rhythm when he ran, but the sniper had a very good sense of rhythm. He didn't rush and every shot could bring great pressure to Fang Yan. Fang Yan didn't dare to run anymore, but found a stone forest to hide. Don't compete with the sniper's rhythm, let alone compete with their speed. If your rhythm was controlled by them, only death awaited you. Fang Yan stopped and the sniper stopped firing. Fang Yan couldn't see the sniper's position and movement, but Fang Yan knew that the sniper must have a panoramic view of their every move through the scope. The sniper was high up and they were low down. They had sniper rifles and Fang Yan only had Qin Tian. This was an unfair war. Qin Tian's body leaned against the big stone, and Fang Yan used his body to block in front of her. This had nothing to do with love but morality. He was a teacher at Rosefinch High School and Qin Tian was his student. Even if it was a bad student like Zheng Guodong, Fang Yan was willing to carry him up from the mountainside with ropes on his back, and Qin Tian was no exception. It was natural for a teacher to protect his students. Unless he died or someone else couldn't touch his students. No matter what the purpose of those people was and in what name. Qin Tian breathed like orchids, and stared at Fang Yan's thin-side face with burning eyes. "What are you looking at?" Fang Yan asked. He was very uncomfortable by the girl's bold eyes. While his whole body was alert, he couldn't help but ask. "You are a hero and I am a beauty. Even if we die today, others will say that we are a match made in heaven." Qin Tian said with a smile. "I want to hear others praise me like that." Chapter 231. In the eyes of outsiders, Qin Tian was a goddess, but in Qin Tian's eyes, Qin Tian was a woman. In Fang Yan's eyes, Qin Tian was a crazy woman. The biological bomb that had turned into a wild bird was brutally bombarded, the mysterious sniper was fatally locked down, there was a tiger behind them and there was a wolf in front of them. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives here. She didn't look for a way to escape, but looked forward to being praised. After being pushed into a stream and drinking a few mouthfuls of muddy water, her IQ had dropped to this level? Make a call. Call the police, Fang Yan said in a deep voice. He tore his jacket off Qini Tian's shoulders and threw it at a spot where the boulder couldn't cover. Bang! Before the coat could fall to the ground, it was pierced by a bullet. What was even more frightening was that the force of the bullet was too great. His drenched clothes were like a jumping rabbit as he was sent flying a few steps away by the bullet before falling to the ground with a thud. They were still locked down by the sniper rifle. The sniper didn't move casually. He was still in his original position, patiently waiting for his prey to jump out. In other words, the slightest carelessness could lead to a headshot. After confirming that the sniper didn't move, Fang Yan was relieved. Although a sniper rifle was powerful, it was a long-range attack weapon. If he hid behind the big rock and didn't show his head, could his sniper rifle penetrate the big rock that was taller than a person? One side was the victim and the other side was the attacker. The longer it took, the more advantageous it would be for Fang Yan and the others. Those guys were all vampires hiding in dark corners. Although they were extremely dangerous, they couldn't see the light of day. Qini Tian didn't call the police. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "My bag is still on the top of the mountain. Where can I call the police with my phone?" Qini Tian loved to see Fang Yan's tense expression, his eyes sharp and his side profile alert. It was said that men who worked hard were the sexiest. Qini Tian felt that men who showed their brave, strong and responsible side in life and death situations were the most fatal charm to women. Even in such a difficult environment, Qini Tian did not feel much danger, because Fang Yan gave her an extraordinary sense of security. Which woman doesn't lack a sense of security? Even if she was a goddess. Athena still had Saint Seiya behind her. She believed that Fang Yan would be able to solve these problems. They were like chickens and dogs that could not withstand a single blow. Only now did Fang Yan remember that when he and Qini Tian were sitting on a big rock at the top of the mountain and eating wild plums, Qini Tian's handbag was placed on the grass. Later, Qini Tian walked to the stream to wash his hands, and then he pushed her into the water. After he scooped her up, he immediately ran down the mountain. How could he care about her handbag? Fang Yan reached into his trouser pocket, and his cell phone was gone. Obviously, when he pushed Qini Tian into the stream, the cell phone had sunk to the bottom of the water. Without a cell phone and communication device, he could only wait for outside rescue. Fang Yan did not look at Qini Tian's face. Now he had more important things to do. He said, "Where is your bodyguard?" "The little old man who often comes to pick you up in a luxury car. I can see that he is a master." "He didn't follow me out," Qini Tian said. "As long as he is with you, he will automatically avoid you. He also thinks that you are good at martial arts and that you can protect me." What a beautiful misunderstanding. Fang Yan smiled bitterly. If he had a bodyguard like the little old man, he would take him wherever he went. Tall, thin, elegant and good at martial arts, such a guy could only open the car door for you. Could he be compared with those guys who drove Ferrari sports cars? No matter which bar or which barbecue stall he went to, he could be an invincible existence. Why was Jiang Junling so arrogant? Wasn't it because he had several such little old men as bodyguards? Otherwise, Fang Yan would have already beaten him to the point that even his mother couldn't recognize him. "He is an old man in my family. You watch me grow up. I have worked hard to pursue a man, and I haven't succeeded yet." He couldn't bear to see it anymore, so as long as I am with you, he won't appear by my side. Even he knows about the matter between you and me? Fang Yan had a feeling that he wanted to vomit blood. A student likes his teacher. His parents will soon come to the door, right? "You know that I am a person who doesn't like to lie." Qini Tian said, "This is not a shameful thing. Could it be that your parents also know about it?" Fang Yan asked cautiously. Even though he had done everything in the right way and thought that nothing had ever happened between him and Qini Tian, he still couldn't believe it. Moreover, he had always regarded Qini Tian's pursuit as a child's naughtiness and game. That was all. What do these little kids know about like and love? "If there is one person in this world that I can't lie to, that person must be my mother." "You mean that your mother knows?" "Although my mother is smarter than my father, she won't hide anything from my father. It's over." Fang Yan had such a thought in his mind. Qini Tian's mouth was slightly raised. When she smiled, there was an amazing and beautiful arc. She looked at Fang Yan playfully and said, "Let me tell you a piece of good news." "What good news?" "Detailed information such as your birth, how many times you peeped on the bed when you were a child, whether you peeped on the neighbor's little beauty when she was bathing, etc. It has probably appeared on my parents' desk several times." Qini Tian said. My mother has a bad habit of investigating other people's privacy. What kind of good news is this? Fang Yen said while gritting his teeth. He could imagine that if Qini Tian was born in a huge family. She kept shouting that she liked him. Wouldn't her family investigate him thoroughly? Even if he had a few strands of hair on his body and a bowl-sized scar on his calf, they would still be able to see it clearly. Fang Yen was very sad and felt that he was running naked. What was even sadder was that he only knew that he was running naked after running naked for a long time. Shouldn't a student liking a teacher be done in secret? For example, he often received love letters from the paper cranes. The girl didn't even dare to leave his name. How could Qini Tian keep talking about it all over the world? They know of your existence but they never say anything to stop it. Qini Tian looked at Fang Yan's worried look and said, "Isn't this good news? You mean, your parents don't object to us being together?" Although Fang Yan felt that it was strange to ask such a question, he had to say that he was still a little happy in his heart. Think about it. A girl like Qini Tian, her parents must be quite excellent humans. Being appreciated and accepted by such excellent people, doesn't it also prove that I am the same kind of person as them? Who doesn't want to be the same kind of person as excellent people? Of course. Qini Tian said. There is another possibility. What possibility? They don't put you in their eyes at all. Qini Tian said. Fang Yan covered his chest with one hand. He felt that there must be a hole made by a sniper bullet. Otherwise, how could he feel the burning pain? Very quickly, he remembered that if the bullet had really pierced through his chest, he would already be in Qini Tian's arms saying his last words to her. Don't ever like me again in your next life. I just want to be a quiet, beautiful man. But Qini Tian's eyes lit up. Then he closed his eyes and died a natural and unrestrained death. What's the matter with the burning pain? Some people are called bitches because they run when you chase them. When Fang Yan heard that Qini Tian's parents knew of his existence, he was a little angry in his heart. As a child, if you let your family know that you have puppy love at school, wouldn't it make your parents worry and embarrass the teacher? However, when Qini Tian said that in his parents' eyes he actually didn't exist at all, he felt indignant in his heart. Don't force me, don't force me. I will accept your daughter's pursuit when I go crazy. Whoosh. A knife was stabbed from top to bottom. The woman's body was extremely soft, as if there were no bones in her whole body. She appeared behind the big rock that Fang Yan and the others were leaning against, and then jumped high over the huge rock that was taller than a person. She held a triangular thorn in her hands and stabbed it from top to bottom towards the top of Fang Yan's head. If she stabbed him, Fang Yan would become the world's first human sausage. He would be roasted on the charcoal fire, and then he would tear off his arm and eat it with soy sauce and garlic. Fang Yan couldn't move. He sat there like an old monk in meditation. He couldn't rush up to meet the enemy, and he couldn't roll forward to easily avoid this killer move. Because when the woman above his head stabbed him with the knife, there was a man in black on the left running towards Qini Tian. He couldn't let himself get hurt and he couldn't let Qini Tian get hurt. This was the responsibility of a teacher. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. This was the sound made by the friction between the body and the air. The woman above his head was faster, and the triangular thorn in her hand fell even faster. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot, Fang Yan could even hear the sound of the sharp knife cutting his hair, and the sharp tip of the thin weapon was about to be inserted into his scalp. It was a close call. Whoosh. Fang Yan finally made his move, and he grabbed the back of the woman's hand that was holding the knife handle. The woman's body was supported by one hand, and she was lifted in the air in a very strange inverted position. At the same time, Fang Yan punched with his left hand. The man in black who tried to grab Qini Tian from the side had just reached out his hand, and Fang Yan punched him. Crack. The fingers of the man in black were broken, and even his whole arm was sent flying. The teacher's student couldn't be bullied, and the teacher's dignity couldn't be tarnished. Chapter 232. It was a teacher's duty to protect students. If he couldn't, Fang Yan could only resign. I'm a teacher. I want to find a celebrity to endorse me. In Fang Yan's eyes, Qini Tian was just a child, his student. No matter what ulterior motives these people had, he couldn't accept and tolerate them attacking a child. Fang Yan was angry, so his punch was naturally heavy. What was the result of an egg colliding with a stone? Smashed into pieces. Fang Yan's punch was not smashed into pieces, but his bones were definitely broken. The man in black didn't expect that he would encounter such a big disaster as soon as he stretched out his hand. When Fang Yan punched out, he still had the intention to compete with Fang Yan in terms of strength. After all, he thought he was also a master. However, when the energy hit him, he began to regret. It was too late to regret. What awaited him was that his whole arm was destroyed, and his bones and flesh were separated from his whole body. The smell of blood filled the air. Blood was dripping. In an instant, Fang Yin punched with both hands. With one hand he lifted a woman in black who was stabbing at his head with a sharp blade, and with the other fist he broke the whole arm of a man in black. There was a very short silence. The sharp blade in the woman's hand couldn't stab any more, and the arm of the man in black fell to the ground, half of his sleeve fluttering in the wind. The whole scene gave people an extremely bloody and extremely strange feeling. Fang Yin still sat in the same place motionless. A few drops of blood splashed on Qin Tian's forehead and more on his clothes. She didn't like the smell of blood, or rather she didn't like anything dirty. The blood was very dirty. She looked at the woman in black in Fang Yan's hand, picked up a big stone and smashed it at her head. The woman suddenly opened her mouth, and a white hidden weapon flew toward Fang Yan's face. Fang Yan carried Qin Tian and dodged to the side. The hidden weapon hit the stone on the ground and exploded. It was a tooth bomb. After the tooth bomb exploded, the green liquid flowed out again. Although it was only a little bit, it still burned a hole in a large rock. It was conceivable that if Fang Yan could not dodge in time and was hit by this tooth, his face would be completely ruined. He would never be able to be an idle teacher again, right? Fang Yan was enraged. Who were these assassins? Why did the things he casually threw out have such destructive power? Fang Yan loosened his grip and the woman in black finally regained her freedom. With one hand holding the dagger, he stabbed at Fang Yan's back, which was on top of Qin Tian. With the other hand he took out a small silver copper ball from his pocket. Whoosh! The steel ball left his hand and flew toward Fang Yan's next landing spot with a whistling sound. This woman was too hateful. She chased people from behind with a knife and stabbed them, but she used a firearm to block the way of others. She would not stop until she was dead. Although he did not know what the silver ball was and Fang Yan did not even have time to look at it, he only knew that something was blocking in front of him based on the sound of the wind. According to the experience of the woman in black's continuous attacks, it must not be a good thing. The way forward was blocked. Fang Yan could only hold Qin Tian and fall back. He just wanted to stay away from the green liquid that could explode and spray out strong corrosive green liquid. Qin Tian was a national beauty, and he was also incomparably handsome. If such an outstanding young man and woman were destroyed, even the heavens would not forgive them. Fang Yan held Qin Tian with one hand and grabbed the triangular dagger in the woman's hand with the other. It looked like a military knife, but it was slender and sharper. Or rather, it was an extended version of a military knife. Bang! The silver copper ball thrown by the woman in black landed on the ground and spun crazily like a top. The mechanism inside sounded and the dazzling light flashed. It turned out to be a flash bomb. Fang Yan quickly closed his eyes to avoid being hurt by the strong light. Qin Tian was smarter. He had already closed his eyes and was obediently held by Fang Yan's arm with one hand. Courting death. The woman's eyes were slightly cold and she cursed. Grabbing a knife with bare hands, did he think he was an immortal? Since you don't know what's good for you, then I will cut off your hand. Just like how you broke my teammate's arm with one punch. Bang. Caught. The woman in black didn't know what happened, and the stabbing blood in her hand was already in Fang Yan's hand. She didn't see how Fang Yan avoided her attack, and she didn't see how she grabbed the knife. She just felt a pain in her wrist, and then the stabbing blood in her hand disappeared. Yes, she called this thing stabbing blood. Stabbing blood didn't make anyone bleed, but became someone else's weapon. The woman in black felt humiliated and rushed to Fang Yan even more crazily. Fang Yan didn't hesitate. What's yours is mine. Although Tai Chi palm, Tai Chi finger and Tai Chi sword could hurt people, but now that he had such a sharp weapon in his hand, he didn't mind using it to stab the woman's chest or throat. Crack. Strange things happened. The stabbing blood in Fang Yan's hand suddenly grew 8 claws, like an octopus, and wrapped Fang Yan's wrist. In other words, now the stabbing blood became a part of Fang Yan's palm. Unless there was a key to open it, or he cut off his arm, or it was difficult to separate it from his body. The woman quickly dodged and then avoided a head-on fight with Fang Yan. She stood on the side and stared at Fang Yan with sarcasm. Fang Yan also stopped his attack. Because he didn't know what was on his hand, he didn't know what would happen to him. This is stabbing blood. I gave it a nickname, Octopus. The woman in black said with a dark face. This was a very ordinary and even ugly woman. Her body was thin, and the places that should be protruding were not protruding, and the places that should be perky were not perky. Triangular eyes, yellow eyebrows, and a dark face. She was quite conspicuous in the crowd. Ugly and conspicuous. It was precisely because of her unique physique that her speed was amazing. Her reaction was quick and her IQ was not low. If she didn't go crazy at the moment after the stabbing blood was taken away, and more ferociously rushed to Fang Yen wouldn't have thought of grabbing her stabbing blood to let her bleed. Her attacks came one after another and she didn't give people a chance to breathe. Moreover, he had used some tricks during the attack. Most of the time, bad people were smart people because doing evil was the most test of intelligence. Killers were even more so. I fell into a trap. Fang Yen regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Why was his hand so cheap? Why did he grab the blade with his bare hands? Others used the blade to show off, to look good, and to strike down the arrogance of the enemy. Why was it that after he stabbed himself with a knife, the knife didn't help him, but instead backstabbed him? Don't try to take it off. Unless you are willing to cut off half of your arm. Also, from now on whatever I say you have to do. The woman in black pointed to an electronic wristwatch on her wrist and said, "Octopus is a bomb and the button is in my hand. You don't have to believe it, but I don't mind blowing you up." Fang Yen almost jumped up. He stared at the woman in black angrily and said, "It's just killing a person, is there a need to be so troublesome? This is the style of our arsenal." The woman sneered again and again. "I know you have good skills. But now is the era of high technology. Fists are no longer omnipotent." Arsenal? Fang Yen thought about it again and again, but he still didn't know what kind of organization this was. Could it be that this was a new killer organization? The name Arsenal was indeed in line with their style of doing things. Whether it was the remote control wild bird, the poison Fang bomb in the mouth, the silver ball of light, or the octopus on her wrist, every one of them was extremely exquisite and powerful, making it impossible to guard against. Fang Yen put Qin Tian on the ground. Even if this thing accidentally exploded, he didn't want to hurt his student. Qin Tian looked at the octopus on Fang Yan's wrist and frowned. She stretched out her jade-like wrist and looked at the woman in black and said, "You are looking for me, right? Put that thing in my hand or lock it or something. Let him go." The woman in black sneered and said, "Miss Qin really lives up to her reputation. Sacrificing yourself to save others is extremely stupid. Since he is involved and knows the secret of our arsenal, do you think he has a chance to live?" Fang Yen felt wronged and said, "I didn't want to hear it. You said it yourself." This woman was too hateful. She didn't keep her mouth shut. She told you about the existence of the arsenal, and now she blamed you for knowing too many secrets. How could you bully an honest person like this? The man in black whose arm was punched off by Fang Yen also came over and took out a bottle of red liquid from his pocket. He raised his head and drank it. The blood flow from the broken part of his shoulder slowed down a lot. Before he took the medicine, the blood spurted out like a fountain. He then took out a small spray bottle from his pocket and sprayed it on the wound a few times. The blood was completely stopped. Fang Yen was a little envious. Fighting and killing were inevitable in Jianghu. The last time Bailey Lu came, he was beaten like a dog and ran away. He was definitely injured. If he could get such medicine to treat his injuries, the danger would be reduced and his fighting strength would be higher. The man stared at Fang Yen viciously and spoke as if he wanted to tear Fang Yen into pieces. He said, "You have been captured." He pulled out a modified Desert Eagle from his waist and pressed the muzzle against Fang Yan's head. "Unfortunately, you are not qualified to be a hostage." Chapter 233. Unfortunately, you're not qualified to be a hostage. Fang Yen felt that he had been insulted. "You can insult me all you want." Fang Yen was often insulted, and it wasn't a big deal to him. But it's not good to kill someone after insulting him, isn't it? Maybe it was because of the deep hatred of Fang Yen for destroying his arm, or maybe the man in black was a cruel and murderous person. He pointed the gun at Fang Yan's head and was about to pull the trigger. "Deagle, you're crazy." The woman in black used her palm to block the muzzle and said, "You can't kill him." Deagle was furious. With red eyes he roared, "Why can't I kill him? We want someone from the Qin family. This guy is insignificant. His death isn't even within our scope." Fang Yen was very angry. How was he insignificant? As long as he nodded, he would be the son-in-law of the Qin family. "Why didn't you treat me well with such an important hostage and blackmail the Qin family for money or other valuable things? How could he just kill him like that? What a waste. He's close to the Qin family." The woman was more sensitive when it came to emotions. Her eyes swept between Fang Yen and Qin Tian's faces. She said, "It's so late and they're still together. He's desperately protecting Miss Qin. Maybe he's also a big fish." "He's my boyfriend," Qin Tian said proudly. Fang Yen glanced at Qin Tian, but didn't expose her white lie. She was trying to save him, to make his identity more important. This mysterious arsenal organization wouldn't do anything to him. The woman in black glanced at Deagle proudly as if to say, "See, I'm right. How can you kill such an important person? You can only maximize your benefits if you stay." "Damn it," Deagle roared angrily. His arm was smashed by a punch. He would be humiliated when he returned to the organization. If he could not kill the culprit, then he would never be able to wash away his shame. He grabbed Fang Yan's collar and pulled Fang Yan's body in front of him. He stared at his annoying face and said word by word, "I will definitely kill you." "I don't doubt it at all," Fang Yan said. "If it weren't for the help of these two kind-hearted ladies, I would have died by now." Xiaoying knew that the two kind ladies Fang Yan was talking about were his partners, Dragonfly and Qini Tian. He couldn't do anything to Dragonfly because she had a higher rank in the organization and was the executive officer of every mission. However, he didn't mind giving Qini Tian some threats. He looked at her with an evil smile and said, "Little girl, come back with me. I will treat you well." "You don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me," Qini Tian said arrogantly. This girl was still thinking of revenge for Fang Yan. Deagle had just put his collector's edition Desert Eagle into his waist, but after hearing Qini Tian's words, he couldn't help but pull it out. "Deagle." The woman in black frowned. "Don't hurt our guests. You know the consequences of failure." Deagle's face was full of shame and unwillingness, but there was nothing he could do. Qini Tian was right. He really didn't have the qualifications to negotiate with Qini Tian. The ones who could negotiate with her were higher-ranking officers in the organization. He was just the lowest-ranking executive officer. Fang Yan and Qini Tian were kidnapped. They were escorted to the hillside. A black GMC limousine was already waiting by the roadside. It had to be said that this organization was very capable and efficient. The car was running and the driver was waiting by the door. A tall middle-aged man looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and said with a fake smile, "I've seen you before." Fang Yan said thoughtfully, "You're the sniper?" "Very few people can escape from my gun," Bat said. "I hope we'll have a chance to fight again. I'm looking forward to blowing your head off with one shot." "Me too." Fang Yan shook his head regretfully. "As you can see, I'm now your captive. I don't know what you want, but if I don't get what you want, I'm sure you'll kill me, right? So, fighting again is just an extravagant hope. A philosopher once said when you say goodbye, you should be more forceful. One more sentence might be your last sentence and one more look might be your last look. We'll never meet again." Bat felt that this guy was crazy. "You're not my woman. Why should I be more forceful, say more or look at you more?" Whoosh. Bat turned around and opened the door of the GMC. She made an inviting gesture and said, "Please." Qini Tian stepped in first. Fang Yan was in their hands. Even if she was free, there was no way she could resist. Fang Yan followed, and then the woman in black and Deagle came in to escort the car. Bat glanced at Fang Yan again and pulled the door shut from outside. He was the driver. After he got into the driver's seat, the car quickly started and rushed to the foot of Zhang Mountain at an even faster speed. The interior of the GMC had been specially modified. It looked like a prison van used to transport prisoners. The difference was that the car's configuration was dozens or even hundreds of times more comfortable than a prison van. Leather seats, LCD TV, cigar boxes, and a small wine cabinet. Which prison van would have such luxurious treatment? Fang Yan and Qini Tian sat on the left, while the woman in black and Deagle sat opposite. The four of them looked at each other without any expression on their faces. Perhaps it was because she had the bomb remote control, but the woman in black was very relaxed. She said to Deagle, "Bandage your arm." Deagle glared at Fang Yan fiercely, threatening him not to act rashly. Then he opened the fridge and took out a medical kit. He took out some disinfectant from the silver medical kit and disinfected it a second time. After spraying the medicine, he wrapped the broken arm tightly with a sticky gauze. He did it like he was used to it, as if his arm was broken dozens of times a day. There was no sign of pain on his face, as if the arm didn't grow out of his body. Even Fang Yan felt sorry for him. These people were probably like machines, right? Qini Tian looked at the woman in black calmly. He always maintained his pride as a member of the Qin family. He looked at the woman in black and said, "What do you want? We're only responsible for bringing you back. As for what you want, it's not up to me to talk to you." The woman in black's answer was very disappointing. They couldn't get any useful information. Qini Tian didn't force it. He just sat there, his mind terrifyingly tough. If other high school students encountered such a scene with the birdie bomb and the sniper, they would have wet their pants long ago and couldn't even stand up. However, this little girl was completely fine. She looked even calmer than her teacher, Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked into Qini Tian's eyes and asked with concern, "Are you cold?" Qini Tian nodded and said, "Cold?" As he spoke, he leaned his body into Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan rested his chin on his hair, and the two of them maintained an ambiguous and warm position. The woman in black opened her mouth slightly, but in the end she didn't say anything. Their mission was completed. They just needed to bring these two people back to the organization. Octopus locked Fang Yan's hands. He and Deagle were on guard. She didn't believe that this man could bring them any danger. Besides, he was probably worried that he would hurt Miss Qin, right? If he did anything out of line, they wouldn't hesitate to aim their guns at Qini Tian's head. The mountain road was uneven, so the car was a little bumpy. Qini Tian had experienced such a disaster and done such intense exercise. He was drowsy from the shaking of the car. His eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and he could barely keep them open. Fang Yan also appeared somewhat tired. He closed his eyes and rested. Sleepiness was contagious. Deagle gave the woman in black a look and she nodded. Deagle was seriously injured and had lost a lot of blood. He also needed to close his eyes and rest for a while. The woman in black, on the other hand, was full of energy. She stared at Fang Yan's shoulder with vigilance. A person's eyes could lie, but the body couldn't. No matter how small a movement he made, it would involve some key parts of his body. He had killed countless people, so these little secrets couldn't be hidden from her. Fang Yan's counterattack was so sudden that no one had expected it. He hit his chest and Qini Tian fell toward the back of the car. The blood-piercing device had fallen from Fang Yan's hand and was now in Fang Yan's hand. He stabbed the knife toward Deagle's chest. Deagle was anxious and he threw himself in the direction of Qini Tian. As long as he blocked Qini Tian in front of him, he didn't believe that the kid wouldn't be afraid to hurt him. The car was wide, but it was only the size of a small car. Even with a few people fighting inside, it still seemed very narrow. With just one leap, Deagle was about to hold Qini Tian in his arms. There was a ferocious smile on his face, and his hand had already touched Qini Tian's clothes. Crack! The sound of a knife cutting tofu came. He felt a pain in his chest and a soft numbness spread all over his body. He looked down and saw that his black shirt had been dyed brown by the blood. On his chest, the sharp blade was dripping with delicate blood. His body had been pierced through. Too fast, Deagle thought. His idea was good and his method was right. However, in front of Fang Yan's absolute speed, it was childish and laughable. He regretted it. He regretted it so much. If he had shot Fang Yan's head, pierced Fang Yan's heart, and smashed Fang Yan's body into a pulp, he would have done it to the other unimportant people. How could Fang Yan do such a thing? He regretted it so much and then he really died. He regretted it so much. Chapter 234. The ancients used the phrase cock crowing and dog stealing to describe some people who had no talent and only knew unorthodox ways to take advantage of others. Pretending to be a dog to help him get away, imitating a cock to crow to trick people to open the city gate, these skills were very suitable in ancient times, and they were also very popular in modern times. Fang Yan used the method of dog stealing, shrinking his body bones until his whole arm was free from the 8 octopus claws on Ci Shui. In the past, someone could pretend to be a dog and get out of a narrow cat hole, and Fang Yan's bone shrinking ability was far better than that of the predecessors. The most difficult part of the octopus clasp was the palm. It was wide, fat, and tightly locked by 8 octopus claws. Fang Yan simply used his left hand to break the 5 fingers of his right hand one by one, and pinched the 5 fingers into a ball, just like the flour used to fry fried dough sticks. This was a cruel and long process. It was cruel because you had to break your finger bones and recombine them so that they could make more space for you to unlock. Only in this way and only in this way could you take these damn claws off your arm. It was long because you needed to be careful not to be found by the 2 people sitting opposite you. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. No matter how unbearable the pain was, you couldn't frown, and your face couldn't show any trace of pain. When you broke the bones, you couldn't show any flaws. After the Ci Shui was taken out, you still couldn't show any flaws. More importantly, when you did all this, you needed some cover. Qini Tian's body was the best cover. When Fang Yan asked her if she was cold, although she didn't know what Fang Yan was going to do, she knew in her heart that Fang Yan must want to do something. Otherwise, based on her understanding of Fang Yan, he wouldn't take the initiative to care about whether she was cold or not. Qini Tian said cold, and then took the initiative to lean his body in Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan needed her help, and she took the initiative to create opportunities for Fang Yan. Faced with such a smart and understanding little girl, Fang Yan's heart almost melted. Therefore, the two of them cooperated well and pierced Deagle's heart when he was caught off guard. Fang Yan's attack had killed Xiang. Life and death could be decided in an instant. At the same time that Fang Yan stabbed Desert Eagle to death, the woman in black had already pounced on Fang Yan from behind. Her reaction was not slow. Fang Yan didn't even look at it. He didn't even have time to pull out the ci shui in his hand. He punched behind him. The woman in black turned her fist into a palm to block. Bang! Her weak body was sent flying by Fang Yan's punch, which was full of vigor and power, but she did not have enough strength. The woman in black's body hit the wall of the carriage and then bounced back and rolled to the ground. Fang Yan pounced on the woman in black. He had to kill her in the shortest time possible. These people came from the mysterious Arsenal organization, and they had all kinds of strange biological weapons in their hands. No matter how good their martial arts were, they were afraid of a kitchen knife. Fang Yan's flesh and blood was really afraid of their bombs. Now they were all in the car. A little carelessness would result in the car being destroyed and people dying. This was not what Fang Yan wanted to see. He was afraid of death. The woman in black lay on the ground motionlessly. She quickly took off the electronic watch on her wrist and held it high in the air. This was her attitude, her threat. Fang Yan's pounce stopped. He squatted in front of the woman in black, his sharp eyes staring at every organ on her black face, capturing every subtle expression on her face. Even the slightest movement of her eyelashes would analyze her motive and purpose. If she showed any suspicious movements, Fang Yan would immediately pull out the ci shui and jump down through the glass with her in his arms. That way Qini Tian would have a chance to survive. Of course, this was based on the fact that the sniper driving in front didn't react so quickly, or his heart wasn't so vicious. The woman in black didn't speak and Fang Yan didn't speak either. Both of their bodies were tense. One was ready to snatch the electronic watch at any time. The other was careful. As long as Fang Yan moved, he would press the remote control button. The atmosphere was tense and dangerous. Bat, who was driving in front, heard the noise in the carriage and shouted through the heavy door, "Deagle, what happened?" Deagle was dead, so he couldn't answer. Neither Fang Yan nor Bat could answer. Whoever answered first would be discouraged. However, for Bat, no one answered, which was the clearest answer. His eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. All he could do was concentrate on driving. They were now on the mountain road down the mountain. The road was steep and a little carelessness could lead to death. "Don't move." The woman in black finally spoke. "If you dare to move a finger, I will immediately press the bomb button." Master Yin stretched out a finger and shook it in front of the woman in black. This was a provocation. A naked provocation. "You deserve to die." The woman in black's eyes were cold and a lot of anger accumulated in her chest. This guy was too shameless. He was humiliating her. She also began to regret. Why didn't she let Deagle shoot him in the head? If he was dead, this wouldn't have happened, right? However, he was kidnapped by the ci shui. How could he escape unscathed? It seemed that she had too much faith in the power of technology. In the face of a real master, even the most advanced weapons and the most solid Skynet would fail. "Don't say such meaningless words," Fang Yan said. "I can't do it without moving a finger. If my nose is itchy, do you not allow others to scratch it? I promise you that I won't attack you again. Aren't you afraid that I will press the button?" The woman in black's eyes were full of murderous intent. Fang Yan pointed to the ci shui that was still stuck in Deagle's body and said, "That thing is no longer in my hands." "So what? If I press the button and the bomb explodes, the whole car will be overturned. You and your woman will be corroded by the venom?" The woman in black threatened. "Then why haven't you done that yet?" Fang Yan asked. This stupid woman finally broke the bomb's attack range. If she didn't say it, Fang Yan couldn't guess the answer, and he had to be careful with this kind of thing. She must not have thought that her threat would make Fang Yan even more fearless. The woman in black felt that she was stabbed in the chest again. "This bastard son of a bitch, do your parents know that your mouth is so vicious? If you dare to provoke me again, I will press the button and die with you." Fang Yan seemed to be able to see through all her thoughts. He waved his hand and said, "Don't tell me that you have gone through the cruel training of the organization and have long disregarded life and death, or that you are deeply grateful to the organization and are willing to die for the organization. I don't believe such bullshit. If you can live, who would want to die? I guess you don't want to, right? People who risk their lives to kill are also the people who are most afraid of death, because they are afraid that they can't kill others but won't be killed. This is a demon." The woman in black thought in her heart. He understood people's hearts and human nature. Although the bomb button was in his hands, why did it seem like he had the right to speak? The woman in black felt that she was very useless. She was a professional assassin. She took people's money to eliminate disasters and specialized in this kind of business. How could she be more afraid of death than a hostage? If I fail, I will be worse than death when I return to the organization. The woman in black said. So, I don't mind dying with you. I know you have such troubles, so I am willing to give you a chance to negotiate. Fang Yen said with a compassionate face as if he was completely thinking for you. The woman in black took a few glances at his head, but she didn't see any glittering golden circles. What do you want to talk about? The woman in black asked. You can't beat me, right? Fang Yen said. The woman in black's body was trembling. Don't force me. If you force me, I will really press it. I will really press it. You are not as good as me in a one-on-one fight. Although you have a remote control in your hand. If you press it, you will blow yourself up at the same time you blow us up? So, there is no difference if this remote control is in your hand or in my hand. Fang Yen analyzed clearly. What do you want to say? The woman in black was a little impatient. Fighting and killing were their strengths. A white knife went in and a red knife came out. If there was a disagreement, they would blow you up into minced meat and corrode your bones. This was the style of their arsenal. What are you trying to do by taking such a big detour in the clouds and fog? Haven't you noticed yet? Fang Yen looked at the woman in black like he was looking at an idiot. You have been kidnapped by me. This was no longer stabbing a knife in the chest. This was throwing a bomb in the face of their arsenal. They came to kidnap and kill, but now they heard the hostages say to them, You have been kidnapped by me. Is this guy crazy? You are the hostage, okay? We are the kidnappers, okay? You don't know your own status and you still dare to come and negotiate with us? I know you can't accept what I said for a while, and you feel that your pride is hurt. But if you think about it carefully, everything I said is the truth. Fang Yen said, I am not as greedy as you, extorting this and wanting that. Give me that watch, tell me who ordered you. Then stop the car on the side of the road and I will let you go. From now on we will never meet again. Chapter 235. Dreams were plentiful but reality was harsh. Seeing the black-faced woman trembling with anger, Fang Yen knew that his negotiation had failed. Yes, since he found out that the woman's face was darker than the clothes she wore, Fang Yen no longer called her the black-faced woman, but the black-faced woman. He wanted to call her a black-hearted woman, but for some reason when he thought of the word black-hearted, his heart felt inexplicably uncomfortable, so he gave up the idea. Don't be angry. Fang Yen looked at the black-dressed woman slowly. Negotiation, negotiation. How can it be considered a negotiation if we don't talk? Whatever conditions you have, just say it. I'm not a person who's easy to talk to. If you're not easy to talk to, then what conditions do you want me to bring up? The black-dressed woman's face darkened even more. She looked at Fang Yen and said, I only have one condition, and that is to bring the target back. You can go, but Miss Qin must stay. Fang Yen turned around and looked at Qin Tian. She was sitting far away in the corner of the car, letting Xia Ying's body block in front of her. Blood flowed out and soaked the hem of her dress, but she didn't care. She was very good at protecting herself. No matter what, she didn't panic and looked for the best opportunity and hiding place. Fang Yen looked at Qin Tian thoughtfully. He really didn't know what this girl had experienced. Impossible. Fang Yen simply refused the black-dressed woman's request. If she leaves, I'll leave. If she doesn't leave, I won't leave either. Of course she can go, but you can keep me. I'll be your hostage. You're useless. The black-dressed woman was also very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's proposal. And it was very insulting. My task is to take Miss Qin away. I thought you were a bonus, but now I find you're trouble. You can leave, but she must stay. Qin Tian looked at Fang Yan's back and said, Fang Yan, you go. I'll stay. They don't dare to kill me. If they kill me, they won't get anything. Moreover, she would suffer the cruelest revenge from the Qin family. Regardless of whether it is her or her organization, they would not do such a stupid thing. Fang Yan shook his head and said, No. You should know that this is the best choice. I know it's the best choice. I know, but I can't. Fang Yan said rudely. If I wasn't Fang Yan but any other teacher in the school, I would follow your advice and choose to leave by myself. Because none of them would be able to solve the problem if they stayed behind. It was very likely that they would become a resentful spirit under their blades and another broken family. I am Fang Yan. When faced with such a situation, I absolutely cannot run away and abandon my students. If my grandfather finds out, he will cut off all ties with me. If my grandfather found out, he would break one of my legs. Your family education is really good. Qin Tian praised. Fang Yan was also very proud and said, "Our Fang family is also a rich and powerful family." Fang Yan felt that it was better not to talk about this in front of Qin Tian. It was too embarrassing. He stared at the dark-faced woman and said, "If you are afraid of the organization's revenge, I can give you a clear path. Since you kidnapped a woman from the Qin family, you must have a certain understanding of the Qin family, right? Why don't you abandon the darkness and join the light? Let's send Miss Qin safely back to the Qin family. I believe the Qin family's reward is enough for you to enjoy for the rest of your life, and I can also take advantage of it. What do you think?" After failing to instigate the ghost fisherman, Fang Yan had been unwilling to accept it. He stood on the side of justice, and the conditions he proposed were so generous. Why didn't those guys want to turn over a new leaf? He had read many novels where the male protagonists in other novels would immediately turn over a new leaf when they encountered a villain. They would curse and shout that they wanted to be the male protagonist's lackey, but they couldn't be beaten or scolded away. They would shelter from the sun when it was sunny, hold an umbrella when it was raining, and play the flute when the enemy came. Most importantly, they wouldn't betray and ask for money. Fang Yan felt that he was a failure as a person. So, as long as there was a chance, he would try to improve his personal charm. "I've lost my patience with you." The woman in black took out a silver ball from her waist and threw it at him. When Fang Yan saw it, he kicked the ball back. Then he turned around and pounced on Qin Tian. He used his own body to cover Qin Tian from head to toe. Bang! The ball was thrown on the ground, but it didn't explode. Also did not have the intense let people open their eyes to the light circle. "This is a pair of handcuffs." The woman in black's eyes flashed with ridicule. "Open it, then lock your arms properly. Otherwise I will press the button. Just like you said, I'm not afraid of death. But if the mission fails, death is the best ending." Fang Yan could see that this woman was serious. If he didn't do as she said, she would really press the button and blow herself and the whole car up. Then, their bodies would be corroded by the green liquid into a pool of charred black residue. 3. The woman in black began to count. "I'll handcuff," Fang Yan said hurriedly. He could count for others, but he hated it when others counted for him. This made him feel that he didn't have much time left, as if he could die at any time. Fang Yan picked up the ball and pressed a red button on it. The ball immediately stretched out and turned into a shining silver handcuff. Fang Yan didn't know what material this handcuff was made of, but he knew that if he wore this thing, even the bone-shrinking skill wouldn't be able to save him. Clang! The wheels ran over a big stone and the whole car bounced. Fang Yan's body fell forward mechanically. Qin Tian's and Xia Ying's corpses also fell toward the front of the car. The woman in black's body fell backward, her hands grabbing the legs of the seat to prevent her body from moving. Seeing Fang Yan rushing toward her, she was a little hesitant. Because she couldn't be sure if Fang Yan was leaning forward due to the car's unstable inertia, or if he was using this opportunity to attack. This was a serious matter. If she pressed the button, everything in front of her would disappear. It was because of this moment of hesitation that she hurt herself. Or rather, she helped Fang Yan. For her, whether she put down the button or pressed the button, there wouldn't be much difference. But for Fang Yan and Qin Tian there was a world of difference. Perhaps for others she couldn't do anything in less than a second of hesitation. It was just a blink of an eye or a fart. But for Fang Yan this little bit of time was more than enough. Fang Yan's hand shot out like lightning. The dark-skinned woman wanted to dodge, but Fang Yan still grabbed her wrist. The woman in black was furious and full of hatred. She finally let go of the thought of survival, and resolutely pressed the electronic watch on her wrist. She wanted to die together with Fang Yan, Qin Tian, and her companion Bat. This was the style of their arsenal. Because of Fang Yan's bewitching words, she actually had a fluke mentality. That was why things had been delayed until now. She regretted it so much. Too late. Fang Yan's big hand exerted force and directly crushed the woman's arm bone. Crack. The sound of bones breaking came and her fingers couldn't press anymore. Fang Yan snatched the electronic watch from her crippled hand. He wanted to smash it into pieces, but he didn't know how to do it. He was afraid that he would detonate the bomb that the dark-skinned woman wouldn't have a chance to detonate. He wanted to open the door, but the door was blocked and he couldn't open it. Clang. Fang Yan punched the window glass, but the glass didn't break. Fang Yan was really angry. These bastards actually used explosion-proof glass. His punch that could easily penetrate a big stone was actually useless. Clang clang clang. Fang Yan punched the window glass again and again. He didn't believe that he couldn't break this glass. The urgent task now was to throw this damn remote control and the thorn bomb out, and then get rid of the woman. After just 3 punches, the woman in black pounced from behind. Fang Yen turned around abruptly and sent the dark-faced woman flying with a punch. Fang Yen had practiced internal martial arts since he was young, and his strength was majestic. It wasn't something that these people who relied on high-tech weapons to kill people could compare to. The advantage of the woman in black was that she was agile and fast. Coupled with those weapons that were impossible to defend against, they were invincible and developed a proud and arrogant personality. They thought that there was nothing in this world that they couldn't do. Unfortunately, they met the true successor of Fang family Tai Chi, Fang Yen. The woman couldn't even block his punch when her hands were intact. Now that one of her arms was crushed by Fang Yen, she was even more vulnerable. Fang Yen punched out and the woman's fist collided with his fist. Her whole body slammed into the hard floor of the car. Clang! This was the sound of a body hitting the car. Clang! This was the sound of a body sliding down the car wall. The woman had the determination to die. She didn't care and instead exploded with even more ferocious combat power. Letting the bright red blood flow down the corner of her mouth and nostrils, the woman once again rushed toward Fang Yen. Bang! Fang Yen punched her chest, but she took the punch head-on. Her body fell to the ground and she took the opportunity to hug Fang Yen's legs. Fang Yen was ready to lower his head and give her another punch to solve this problem once and for all. Clang, 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 the car suddenly shook violently. The front of the car tilted, and it rushed toward the slope next to the mountain road. Fang Yen tried his best to use the jack to prevent his body from falling. The woman's heavily injured body swayed left and right on the car board, hitting the legs of the chair and the car wall. However, she really hated Fang Yen to the core. She used her relatively healthy arm to hug Fang Yen's calf tightly. She didn't have a better way to hurt Fang Yen. She suddenly opened her mouth and bit Fang Yen's leg. Fang Yen! Qini Tian screamed. Her thin body quickly rushed toward Fang Yen. Whoosh! A bullet pierced through Qini Tian's body and came out from Fang Yen's back. With a bang, it hit the back of the car, creating a deep dent on the solid steel plate. Chapter 236. Bat was a very calm person. He was so calm that he was almost callous. As a sniper, he had to eliminate the distractions of the harsh environment around him, learn to recognize fake movements, and search for the real body of the target amidst complicated concealment objects and strange rolling and running movements. He had to strive to achieve a headshot. If he had played a game called Counter-Strike, he would know that no one disliked the thrill of a headshot. Although the main driver's compartment and the rear compartment were separated by a plank, there was still a hole in the middle for people to communicate or pass cigarettes and alcohol. Bat had long sensed the abnormality in the rear compartment, but he was still focused on driving. They were now driving at high speed on the mountain road, and the slightest carelessness would cause the car to overturn. However, when he called Deagle's name, Deagle did not respond. His dog-like nose smelled the thick smell of blood in the rear compartment, and he knew that the situation was out of control. Otherwise, why would Octopus not even send a signal to reassure him? She did not send a signal, which meant that the development of the situation was very worrying. What a bunch of idiots, Deagle cursed in his heart. How could a guy who was bound by blood and the bomb's remote control was still in Octopus's hand, give him time and opportunity to fight back? If he sensed anything, he would have shot him dead. He was not a big shot anyway. When he heard Octopus's painful groan, he knew that he could not wait any longer. Deagle was dead, Octopus was seriously injured, and they could escape immediately. Without any hesitation, he turned the steering wheel and drove the car towards the slope next to the mountain road. It was a steep slope and the car sped up as it went down. Bat abandoned the car and let the car crash into the bottomless cliff. He was like a bat lying on the window and shooting at Fang Yen. He had already secretly made a small hole in the wall. He had fought with Fang Yen before. Whether it was the remote bomb codenamed Bluebird, or his long-range sniper, Fang Yen had dodged all of them. Therefore he knew very well that this guy was the real threat. As long as he killed him, everything would be fine, and they could still bring Qini Tian back to complete the mission. The car was bumpy and unstable, and with Octopus risking his life to attack, Desert Eagle easily found an opportunity to shoot. Qini Tian sat in the corner of the carriage. Although the carriage was shaking violently and their lives were in danger, Qini Tian still maintained absolute calmness. Her mother had told her that the more dangerous the situation was, the more calm she had to be. Because at that time your time is the most precious. Don't waste a single second. They couldn't afford to waste it. Qin Tian had always done a good job in this regard. When she saw the desert eagle outside the car window, she immediately threw herself at Fang Yan. Seeing Qin Tian take the bullet for Fang Yan, Bat's pupils constricted. Since they kidnapped Qin Tian, they naturally knew Qin Tian's true identity. If he didn't conduct a thorough investigation on his target, he might slip up or offend a big shot that he couldn't afford to offend. Even if he provoked him, he still had to get a corresponding reward, right? She was the young lady of the Qin family. Such a delicate woman was willing to take a bullet for a man. That must be the legendary true love, right? Soon after, a cold smile appeared on his face. Do you think you can block my bullets just because you want to? He regretted that he didn't take out his sniper rifle. That was the weapon he was best at. With one shot, he could blast a big hole in their bodies or directly blow their heads off. Unfortunately, he kept the sniper rifle in the box, and it was not as useful in close combat as the custom-made Borg in his hand. When Bat wanted to pull the trigger again, Fang Yan disappeared right under his nose. Qin Tian also disappeared at the same time. He knew that there was only one possibility. He was hiding next to the wall of the car that was close to him. In other words, the distance between them was only a thick wall of the car. Bang bang bang. Bat fired continuously at the wall of the car, trying to penetrate it and kill Fang Yan. Unfortunately, the bulletproof car that had been modified by the armory was extremely strong. Ordinary bullets couldn't penetrate it. Even the accelerated bullets of his Borg pistol couldn't penetrate it. The dark-skinned woman saw that Fang Yan was injured. She didn't want to give Fang Yan a chance to breathe. She climbed up from the ground and pounced on Fang Yan again. She wanted to push Fang Yan to the window, to the middle of the car, and to the shooting range of Bat. If Fang Yan died, their mission would be completed. Even if they might have to pay with their lives. Fang Yan pushed Qin Tian's body under the seat to prevent her from getting hurt again. Then he turned around and rushed toward the dark-skinned woman, letting her hold on to his arm tightly. You don't know what you have done. Fang Yan roared with a hoarse voice. His eyes were blood red and they were filled with dense blood vessels. Qin Tian's injury had completely infuriated him. An intense heat came from his dantian. It was as if his body was going to be incinerated. Although there was no smoke, Fang Yan felt that his body was boiling, as if he was in a big iron furnace that had just been heated. His blood was hot. It was scalding hot. This wasn't the heart of Tai Chi, nor was it the state of Tai Chi. This was the complete opposite of the calm and peaceful state of the Taiji heart, where everything was still. He wanted to vent. He wanted to expel the heat from his body. The dark-skinned woman's heart skipped a beat. She saw a suffocating murderous aura from Fang Yan's eyes. She was an assassin. How could an assassin be afraid of murderous aura? The dark-skinned woman became even crazier. She used all her strength to hit Fang Yan's body. She took out another ball from her pocket. She was going to perish together with everyone in the car. She wanted to destroy and drown everything that had failed. This was also the rule of the armory. If the mission failed, they would work hard to cover up the secret of the armory in this world. Die. Fang Yan roared. Boom. With one punch, red and white matter splattered everywhere. The head of the woman in black had actually disappeared, and she had become a headless corpse. Fang Yan punched out furiously. His aura surged and his strength was as great as Mount Tai pressing down on the Yangtze River. How could the body of a mortal withstand the pressure of Mount Tai and the rushing of a great river? Even if steel could be pierced and rocks could be smashed, a mere head would naturally be hard to find. What was even more frightening was that the flesh and blood that flew out actually carried a burnt smell. Fire chi, fire chi, fire chi. The stronger the chi, the fiercer the fire. The dark-skinned woman's petite body collapsed to the ground. Just as the ball was about to hit the ground, Fang Yan flicked it with the tip of his foot and it jumped back into Fang Yan's hand. Fang Yan's face and body were drenched in blood, and he looked like a god of death. He turned around and punched Bat's car window with a loud bang. Boom! The glass was on the verge of breaking. Boom! Another punch. Cracks began to appear on the glass and it looked like it was about to explode. In order to sneak an attack on Fang Yan, Bat had purposely opened a gap in the window. Because of this gap, he had the opportunity to shoot and injure Qin Tian and Fang Yan. However, it was also because of this gap that Fang Yan had the opportunity to smash it. If the glass was tightly fastened to the inside of the window frame, it would be like the glass on the other side, airtight and as hard as alloy. Boom! The third punch. Finally, the glass could not withstand the heavy blows and cracked open. Bat, who had been lying on the roof of the car and waiting for an opportunity to shoot, dodged the flying glass shards and raised his gun to shoot at the window. Before he could pull the trigger, Fang Yan grabbed his arm. With a forceful tug, Bat's body was pulled into the window. Although large pieces of glass fell off, there were still some glass shards stubbornly stuck to the edge of the window frame. With such a violent pull from Fang Yen, a few pieces of Bat's skin and flesh were torn off by the glass shards. A few bloody grooves appeared on his stomach and back. Only then did Bat realize that his strength was not on the same level as Fang Yan's. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from Fang Yan's iron grip. Fang Yen pressed Bat's body against the floor of the car and raised his foot. Crack. Bat's arm that was holding the gun was broken. Crack. Fang Yen raised his foot again and broke the arm that was not holding Bat's hand. His clothes were torn into pieces, his bones were crushed, and his skin and flesh were separated from his body. Fang Yen destroyed both of Bat's arms, leaving him no chance to hold the gun or turn the tables. Then he grabbed the gun from Bat's hand that was separated from his body and pulled the trigger desperately at Bat's head. Bang 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 bang, until all the bullets in the gun magazine were emptied. Fang Yen smashed the gun on Bat's broken body. Bat lay there motionless. His head had been smashed to pieces by Fang Yen, and his body was already dead. Clang. The car hit a boulder on the way down the slope. The car was unstable and the whole car rolled over. Clang 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 clang, it rolled faster and faster and was about to fall into the abyss. Fang Yen rushed over to pick up Qin Tian, and the two of them rushed toward the broken window. While their bodies were still in the air, Fang Yen flicked his finger, and a silver ball flew back into the car. Boom, a muffled sound came and the solid car was blown into pieces. A large amount of green liquid splashed out, corroding the plants, insects, stones, and even the air into ashes. Fang Yen tiptoed, and his body bounced up again when he was about to hit the ground. He rolled a few times in the air and finally adjusted his body's balance. Then he landed steadily with Qin Tian in his arms. Qin Tian. Fang Yen shouted to Qin Tian in his arms. I'll take you to the doctor now, you can't die. Qin Tian struggled to open his eyes. His voice was weak, but there was no trace of fear. He said with a smile, I'm not as good as her, I can only help you block the knife. Chapter 237. He was on the mountainside and the car had crashed. Fang Yen was in a dilemma. The nearest building to them was the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain. As long as he carried Qin Tian up there, he would be able to get the car. Then he would drive Qin Tian to the hospital, which would be faster. Alternatively, he could carry Qin Tian and run to the foot of the mountain, where there was a gas station and parking lot not far away. There should be a car that he could borrow. Of course, waiting by the roadside was a good way to save energy. Because there would always be some customers driving back from the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain after dinner, Fang Yen only needed to hijack the car halfway. Fang Yen put Qin Tian on the grass by the roadside and pressed several acupuncture points on her body. This would slow down the speed of her blood loss. He rummaged through all the pockets on his body, but they were all empty. There was no medicine to stop the bleeding or heal his wounds. He slapped himself in the face and ran to the foot of the mountain with Qin Tian in his arms. Qin Tian covered Fang Yan's chest and said, You're hurt. You're bleeding a lot. Don't talk, Fang Yen shouted. Talking would pull at the wound and even consume energy. At this time it was very important for the body to retain some energy. If it took too long without treatment and Qin Tian ran out of energy, she would never wake up again. Fang Yen, tell me, if I didn't rush over to block the bullet for you, could you have dodged it yourself? Qin Tian had never been an obedient person. Although Fang Yen yelled at her not to speak, she had no intention of stopping at all. Don't talk. Fang Yen was panting and his heart was beating fast. Although he was also injured, his legs were still flying. He had to find a car as soon as possible and send Qin Tian to the hospital as soon as possible. You haven't answered my question. Don't talk. Fang Yen almost roared. You haven't answered my question. Qin Tian was far more stubborn than Fang Yen imagined. We can't hide, Fang Yen said in a deep voice. Qin Tian was very happy and laughed silently. Fang Yen, you lied to me. Qin Tian's voice was very low, but his expression looked very happy. Fang Yen didn't want to reply. If he didn't talk to her, she probably wouldn't be interested in talking to him, right? In the past, I always liked to calculate. No matter what I did, I liked to think it through in my mind first. Was there any danger in this matter? Were there any loopholes in this decision? How much profit was there in this investment? Maybe it's because his IQ is not bad, he has never missed anything. Qin Tian said softly. She closed her eyes as if talking to herself. However, Fang Yen could hear every single word that came out of her mouth. Then it flowed into his heart. People outside say that I have wisdom, and I also think I'm very smart. Calculating has become the norm of life. I don't do things based on feelings, and the rhythm of life is never off track. I also like this state. Sometimes I feel a little irritated, but at least it's comfortable and comfortable. When there's a bodyguard, you need a bodyguard to protect you. When the bodyguard is not around, you have to learn to take care of yourself. But when I saw someone shooting at you, I rushed over without thinking. I forgot to calculate and ignored the pros and cons. I just thought that I can't let him kill you. I will make sure that you live. If I live, you have to live. You idiot, I told you not to talk. You're a student, you're my student, I'm your teacher, can you listen to me for once? Fang Yen shouted while gritting his teeth. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his chest was bleeding profusely. The front half of his clothes was soaked with blood, and the back half was soaked with sweat. However, the unlucky girl in his arms was still talking non-stop. Didn't she know that it was really dangerous? If he could, he really wanted to slap her until she fainted. But he was worried that if he did that, Qini Tian would never wake up. She would never wake up. Didn't they say on TV that people who have been shot must talk more? Because that way they won't faint. That's someone else. You won't faint. Fang Yen said with absolute certainty. He had been transferring energy into Qini Tian's body carefully and gently, so that her body's organs would always be in a basic state of operation, and her brain would always be awake. But you can't waste all this life-saving energy, right? It was fine if he could transfer it now, but if he couldn't transfer it later. Fang Yen couldn't imagine the consequences. Fighting and killing were common occurrences for martial artists. Fang Yen had experienced the test of life and death, and even suffered the torture of injuries. But he had never been as afraid as he was today. He was afraid that he would die, and he was afraid that the girl in his arms would die. I don't believe that I will faint either. Although I have no strength in my body, my brain is very clear. Qini Tian said. I know that you can dodge it. When I threw myself at you, I remembered that with your skills, you must be able to dodge it. Because I threw myself at you, it affected your performance and made you get shot together with me. I said that I can't dodge it. I'm not a god. Fang Yen corrected Qini Tian's words. Fang Yen, I said that my brain is very clear now. Qini Tian exposed Fang Yan's lie. But I like the lie you told. The reason why you said that you can't dodge it is because you don't want me to blame myself. You're afraid that I will blame myself because you start to care about me? In the evening, the sky was still full of sunlight, but at night, it became dark and cloudy and it might rain at any time. This was the weather in the south. Beep, 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 strong lights shone and there was a sharp sound of a car horn behind him. Fang Yen breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, there was a car coming. He did not dodge. Instead, he stood in the middle of the mountain road with Qini Tian in his arms. The driver originally wanted to crash into them, but he did not slow down and instead increased the horsepower. As the ancients said, when two people meet on a narrow road, the braver one wins. If he did not stop, the person in front would definitely dodge. The distance was getting closer and closer, but the person in the way did not jump away. Screech. The white BMW stopped in front of Fang Yen. The window was opened, and a young man with a buzz cut and earrings pointed at Fang Yen and scolded, "Are you fucking blind or deaf? You don't know how to dodge the horn and you can't see such a strong headlight. Do you believe that I won't kill you?" There was also a coquettish girl who looked at Fang Yen with vigilance, urging her boyfriend to drive away quickly, because she found that Fang Yen and Qini Tian were covered in blood. It was really scary. Fang Yen carried Qini Tian to the passenger seat, opened the door with one hand, and dragged the girl out of the car. Then he put Qini Tian in the car and carefully helped her fasten the seat belt. With a flip, he jumped from the top of the car to the opposite side. When the man with the earring wanted to lock the window, he had already dragged his head out and pressed it against the window so that he could not move. "You don't mind lending me the car, do you?" As Fang Yen spoke, he had already opened the door. The man with the earrings' head was stuck in the door, and he was dragged out of the car with him. This guy was not afraid of death and he did not even fasten the seat belt. "No problem. No problem." The man with the earring cried and said. Originally, he wanted to say a few harsh words, but before he could open his mouth, the guy had already hit him. They were much more ruthless than him. Moreover, it was dark on the mountain road. If the robber really wanted to do anything to them, he really could not do anything. "Thank you," Fang Yen said. Clang. The door closed and the car sped away. The woman ran to the side of the man with the earring and said hurriedly, "Zhou Bing, quickly call the police. Our car was robbed." "Call the police? What police?" The man with the earring said angrily. "Who said that the car was robbed?" They borrowed it. Didn't you hear him say thank you to me? He thought, this idiot woman, if she called the police, the fact that his car was robbed would be known by his brothers in the circle. How could he go out and meet people in the future? After getting the car, the speed was obviously much faster. Fang Yin found a mobile phone in the car and said, "Give me a number." Qini Tian lay on the seat and said a row of numbers. The clouds were getting lower and the wind was getting stronger. The raindrops finally fell, beating on the car window with a pitter-patter. As soon as the car entered the suburbs, a group of people stopped Fang Yan's car. They rushed over here, led by the old housekeeper that Fang Yan had met a few times and often took the car to pick up Qini Tian. Someone opened the car door, someone helped hold an umbrella, and more people carried the unconscious Qini Tian lying on the seat. They even had a stretcher ready. Fang Yan threw away the borrowed BMW and followed. Qini Tian was sent into a huge white medical car. The doctors and nurses in white coats who were waiting in the car immediately got busy. Fang Yan wanted to get in the car, but was blocked by the old housekeeper. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. The old housekeeper did not say a word, but his attitude was very clear. Fang Yan could not go up. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said again. He punched the old housekeeper's expressionless face. Bang. The old housekeeper gently raised his hand and blocked Fang Yan's fist. The old housekeeper sighed softly and said, "Why? Mistrusted you, so I gave her to you. Now, do you still want to affect Mrs. Treatment?" Fang Yan's whole body was wet. The rain and blood mixed together. His eyes were red. He bowed deeply to the old housekeeper and said, "Please." The motorcade went away. Fang Yan, standing in the rain, felt that a piece of his heart had been dug out. Chapter 238. Qini Tian. Fang Yan shouted from the podium. No one answered. The heads of the students in the class turned to the back row, and then their gazes returned to Fang Yan. What was wrong with Mr. Fang? In the past, he knew which students were absent and which students asked for leave, and he had never made such a mistake. Just because Qini Tian wasn't around, he was in such a daze? Huang Haoren stood up and said, "Mr. Fang, Qini Tian hasn't come to class for several days." Thinking about it, he felt indignant. Very few people ran away from Mr. Fang's Chinese class, but Qini Tian was an exception. And he left just like that without even leaving a note. He added, he didn't ask for leave either. Fang Yan looked a little absent-minded. Yes, Qini Tian hadn't come to class for several days. He left in a big way and quietly without even leaving a note. Fang Yan had called her, but the number she used was still unavailable. Later, Fang Yan had asked Fang Yingying to go to the top of Yizhang Mountain to look for Qini Tian's bag, but Fang Yingying had come back to report that the bag was gone. Even the GMC car that Fang Yan had said had been blown to pieces had disappeared. Yes, there would always be an end to this kind of thing. It was either that mysterious armory organization or someone from the Qin family. Any one of them had the ability to erase all traces of that night, as if nothing had ever happened. Students were required to leave a home phone number or the phone number of their immediate family in the school's file for the convenience of the school and the students' parents. However, Qini Tian's information only had a home number in Huaqing. The call was answered by a middle-aged woman. She said that she was Qini Tian's aunt, but the aunt's knowledge was limited. She didn't even know where Qini Tian had gone. Qini Tian seemed to have suddenly disappeared. He disappeared from Class 9, from Rosefinch, from Flower City, and from Fang Yan's world. "Mr. Fang." Huang Haoren saw Fang Yan standing on the podium in a daze and asked, "Do you want to call Qini Tian?" Tang Cheng's head rested on the table as he lazily said, "I've fought before." No one answered. Without Qini Tian, Tang Cheng felt that class was too boring. Fang Yan's class was better. It was humorous and witty, and the topics were relatively new. At least it could make him a little more energetic. Besides, even if Fang Yan's class was boring, he had to force himself to be energetic. He couldn't beat Fang Yan. In other teachers' classes, he used to sleep to pass the time. If the teacher was angry and asked him to answer a question, he could answer correctly every time, leaving the teacher speechless and helpless. This kind of behavior could win a lot of applause from other students. They felt that Tang Cheng, who could answer all the questions without listening in class, was too cool. After a few times, the teachers turned a blind eye to his various bad habits. They didn't want to give this kid a chance to gain face. Qini Tian wasn't feeling well, so he applied for leave from school in advance. "I forgot about this," Fang Yan explained. Then let Huang Haoren answer this question. When Fang Yan was in class, if the question was too profound and none of the students could answer it, Fang Yin would call out the names of Qin Tian, Tang Qing, or Huang Haoran. Their views on the problem could often bring surprises or inspiration. This wasn't because he was biased towards these students, but because he wanted to use this method to tell other students that any question could be answered. As long as you were good at thinking, you could do as well as them. He wanted to motivate the students' learning enthusiasm and the desire to compete with others. As long as there was competition within the class, the students' learning could continue to improve. Today, Fang Yin habitually called out the name of Qin Tian, but the owner of that name couldn't use the most elegant posture and the most correct answer to win the students' warm applause like before. Huang Haoran didn't think too much and began to answer the questions raised by Fang Yin seriously. The bell rang and Fang Yin walked down the podium with his textbook. Tang Qing, who looked like he couldn't even sit up straight, suddenly jumped up and ran to the front of the podium to block Fang Yan's way. He said, "Mr. Fang, you know where Qin Tian went, right?" Fang Yin looked at Tang Qing's handsome facial features, and his heart was filled with infinite emotions. He didn't approve of love in high school because this was the time to desperately absorb knowledge. This was also one of the most critical periods in one's life. Students didn't know how to reasonably arrange their time and control their feelings. They would regard love as the only thing. They would think of that person and miss that person when they were walking or eating in class. In this case, where would they have time to learn and complete the most important accumulation of knowledge in life? However, he knew that he couldn't stop this phenomenon with his own strength. If possible, he hoped that the person Qin Tian liked was Tang Qing. Their feelings were quiet, hidden, bitter, sweet, and most importantly, Tang Qing also liked her wholeheartedly, just like other girls who fell in love early in high school. The biggest punishment was just the teacher's reprimand and the parents' scolding. In any case, there was no need to use his body to block bullets. An unintentional sacrifice in exchange for such a desperate return. Was it really worth it? Fang Yan's heart was in a mess. Fang Yan looked at Tang Qing and said, "Didn't you try? You couldn't get through to her phone and I couldn't get through to her." But Tang Qing scratched his hair and looked a little embarrassed. He was still a student. A student asking a teacher about the whereabouts of another female student? After all, it would give people the feeling that it was too bold and direct. She will leave at any time. I didn't think such a thing would happen. However, if she really wanted to leave, she would definitely tell you. So, if there is someone in Rosefinch who can know her whereabouts, that person must be you. Fang Yin looked at Tang Qing apologetically and said, "I really don't know." Fang Yin took the textbook and prepared to leave, but Tang Qing once again blocked in front of Fang Yin. "Mr. Fang, tell me, did something happen to Qin Tian?" Tang Qing asked nervously. Fang Yin looked at Tang Qing and said, "Why do you ask? You didn't deny." Tang Qing's face was even more embarrassed. "Moreover, you haven't laughed for several days." "Haven't laughed for several days?" Fang Yin was stunned. "Mr. Fang, if anything happens to her, you must tell me," Tang Qing said. "If she gives you any information, please tell me." Tang Qing bowed to Fang Yin and said, "I'll be counting on you." "Oh, please." Tang Qing also said, "Please?" He said to the old housekeeper, "Please take good care of Qin Tian, please save Qin Tian no matter what." Tang Qing also said please. He hoped to know the whereabouts of Qin Tian and whether she was doing well. Fang Yin felt the wound on his chest throbbing again. He couldn't see his face, but it must be frighteningly pale at this time, right? Fang Yin patted Tang Qing's shoulder and turned to walk out of the classroom. Tang Qing looked at Fang Yan's depressed figure and suddenly felt some sympathy for him. Headmaster Zhang Xiaofeng happened to appear at the door of the classroom. He waved at Fang Yin and said, "Mr. Fang, let's walk a few steps." Fang Yin nodded and followed Zhang Xiaofeng to the teacher's office. "The weather is getting colder and colder," Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. "Although Huaqing is located in the southernmost part of Huaxia, it's very cold in winter. The coldness drilled into the bones, but here we are in the mood to pretend to be intimate in the room. When I first came here, this old man had suffered for a few years." "Headmaster Zhang is not from Huaqing?" "No. From Jincheng." "From Jincheng," Zhang Xiaofeng said. "Jincheng's winter is also cold. It's not as cold as Huaqing's. When winter comes, it snows heavily and the whole world is dyed white. Speaking of which, it's been a few years since I went back to Jincheng for the spring festival." Zhang Xiaofeng didn't beat around the bush. He looked at Fang Yin and said, "Qin Tian isn't feeling well, so she went back to Yanjing for treatment. Her family called to ask for leave. You already know about this, right?" "I don't know," Fang Yin said. His heart started to sink. It wasn't Qin Tian who contacted him, but her family who contacted the headmaster directly. What happened to Qin Tian? How serious was her injury? Had she not woken up yet? Isn't Qini Tian quite healthy? I've never heard of any illness in the past. Zhang Xiaofeng seemed to say it casually, but in fact he wanted to find out some real information from Fang Yan. He only received a call to ask for leave, and he had no clue what exactly happened. He still paid a lot of attention to such a girl. He was also willing to maintain a closer relationship with her and her family. Fang Yan looked at Zhang Xiaofeng with a serious expression and said, "Headmaster, I don't know as much as you do. Did Qini Tian's family say anything else?" Fang Yan's reply made Zhang Xiaofeng feel regretful. He shook his head and said, "Nothing much, just a call to ask for leave. I'll let you know about this. It's fine as long as you know." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I know." Zhang Xiaofeng waved his hand at Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Go do what you need to do. I'll go for a stroll." It was already lunchtime and Fang Yan didn't go to the office again. When he returned to the small courtyard, he found that there were guests in the house. Two men in black stood at the door, staring warily at Fang Yan, who had just pushed the door open. Fang Yan nodded to them and directly passed by them. Lu Xiaoge, who was wearing a silver professional suit that accentuated his perfect figure, sat on the sofa in the living room. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan, the two little henchmen, accompanied him on his left and right, chatting, serving tea and fruits, and were very busy. Seeing that Fang Yan had come back, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan immediately stood up and said tactfully, "You talk, you talk." Then the two tactfully ran into the room. The living room was left to Fang Yan and Lu Xiaoge. Chapter 239. Her long hair had been specially taken care of and stretched out at the back of her neck, revealing a beautiful phoenix tail. The light yellow shirt was a perfect foil to her snow-white skin, and the tailored bright silver suit jacket made her look both serious as an office lady and fashionable as an urban woman. It had been a long time since they last met, but Lu Xiaoge still had that kind of cold and callous expression on his face. It seemed that he kept a very far distance from everyone. "I heard that you took 3 days off?" Lu Xiaoge looked at Fang Yan sitting across from her and took the initiative to ask. "I'm not feeling well," Fang Yan said. After Qini Tian was taken away, Fang Yan rushed back in the rain. The bullet didn't stay in the body and it didn't go through the vital parts. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan both knew some treatment and bandaging methods. After being tossed around by them, Fang Yan quickly fell into a deep sleep. Fang Yan woke up in the morning the next day, but he was only 1 hour later than when he woke up at 6 in the morning to practice his stance. The wound wasn't inflamed, his body didn't have a fever, and Fang Yan felt very hungry. It seemed that he was recovering well. Fang Yan took 3 days off and went to class on the 4th day. He sat there doing nothing but dialing Qini Tian's phone number over and over again. He turned off his phone, turned off his phone, turned off his phone, almost driving him crazy. Therefore he handed this task to the unemployed Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, and went to class as usual. After entering the state of work, Fang Yan's restless heart calmed down. This was the state he wanted. The war was imminent and he needed to keep his body strong and his heart calm. Unfortunately, after he and Qini Tian were shot at the same time, these two things were far away from him. "I only took 3 days off, yet someone reported it to Lu Xiaoge. I have to say, it seems like everyone firmly believes that I and Lu Xiaoge are a couple." "You look haggard," Lu Xiaoge said. "Really?" Fang Yan wanted to look at himself in the mirror, but he gave up on the idea. What did it matter to him to be haggard or not? "From the first time I saw you, you cut my flower arrangement in the office. Until I left school, even when we were at our most difficult times, you never showed such decadence. Proud, motivated, and fearless. This is the Fang Yan I know." Lu Xiaoge looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and asked, "What are you worried about?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly. These women were all shrewd. "Do you still want people to live? Let's not talk about me anymore." Fang Yan wanted to change the topic. "How are the preparations for your company?" "Chaoyan Technology is progressing very well. The office and research room have been renovated. Because the research on bioenergy is a secret project, we have put in enough effort and security. The next step is to recruit people. Our partners will send some elites over, but the middle-level and low-level personnel still have to be recruited one by one from the talent market. In 2 days we can open for business. Do you want to go and take a look?" "I'm not going," Fang Yan rejected. "I believe in your ability." "The company's matters are finished," Lu Xiaoge said. "Now can you tell me what you are worried about?" Lu Xiaoge frowned slightly and said, "If you are not happy at school, you can leave or go to Chaoyan Technology. Although those companies are still safe for the time being, the temptation of the magic cube is too great. I believe they won't give up. They also need you there. Seeing that Fang Yen didn't respond, Lu Chaoge explained, I didn't come here to ask you to go to Chao Yin for help. I know what your choice is. I just want to tell you. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Even if you lock yourself in this yard every day to practice, I think it's a very good choice. Fang Yen looked at Lu Chaoge thoughtfully and said, Why do you care about me so much? Because. Lu Chaoge picked up the tea that Fang Yingying brought on the table, avoided Fang Yan's eyes and said, Auntie said that in this world, you are the only person who really cares about us. I think so too. Your auntie is a very great woman, Fang Yen said. Under such a harsh environment, she used her entire life to make a bet. In the end, she won the bet. That's because of you. If it weren't for you, the biggest variable, I would have died long ago and auntie would have lost the bet. Fang Yen shook his head. It was really not easy for this woman to survive such a serious injury. After 2 lessons, he wanted to drink a sip of water, but Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan hid in the room and didn't come out, so he had to stand up and pour himself a cup of water. As soon as he got up, Lu Chaoge had already taken the teacup and tea leaves to help him make a cup of tea. The teacup was Lu Chaoge's and the tea leaves were also Lu Chaoge's. She was more familiar with this house than Fang Yen. Thank you, Fang Yen said. He felt a little embarrassed. After all, Lu Chaoge was a guest from afar. If it's not convenient to say, I won't force you, Lu Chaoge said. Grandma called me and asked me to go to her house for dinner. Fang Yen had a headache and said, You are so busy with work, how can Grandma bother you? You can refuse directly. I accept, Lu Chaoge said. To be honest, I was very happy to receive a call from Grandma. Grandma was very dissatisfied with Fang Yen. She ignored the big and small bags of gifts in his hands and directly lost her temper at him. She said, I don't understand. Isn't it just being a class teacher? You are so busy that you don't even have time to go to Grandma's house for a meal. Fortunately, we live in the same yard. If you still live in Yanjing, I'm afraid I won't be able to see you for the rest of my life. It's my fault, my fault. Fang Yen apologized again and again. There were some things that were not convenient for him to say, and the reasons that were convenient to say were difficult to convince Grandma. He simply bowed his head and apologized to appease Grandma's anger. Because except for your closest relatives, no one would care where you ate and how long you didn't come back for dinner. Lu Chaoge also spoke up for Fang Yen and explained, It's my fault. My company has just been established and I need Fang Yan's help with many things. Grandma said in a hurry, It's not your fault, it's not your fault. It's only right that Fang Yen goes to help. If he doesn't, who will? I'm just afraid that he's so clumsy that he can't do anything right. Fang Yen felt as if his wound, which had yet to heal, had been ruthlessly poked again. She was his own grandma. Lu Chaoge couldn't help but laugh at her grandma's amusing remark. Fang Yen is quite capable. So what? Luckily he's only a class teacher. If he becomes the principal, I won't be able to see my grandson for years to come. Chaoge, you can't learn from him. Let Fang Yen do everything for you and you need to take good care of yourself. Come to my place for dinner when you're free and I'll make soup for you. Oh, I noticed that you liked fish last time, so I made some different kinds today. Here, try them. Fang Yen, go upstairs and tell your grandpa to come down for dinner. Fang Yen sighed softly in his heart as he watched his grandmother pull Lu Xiaoge's hand affectionately into the house for dinner. It seemed that his grandma, like all the other teachers at school, had misunderstood his relationship with Lu Xiaoge. It was time to have a talk with him. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Qinya Haowu used to make a whooshing sound when he attacked, but now it was a whooshing sound. His father had told him that he could start learning sword techniques when his attacks were silent. The true North Star one-blade flow sword technique had been improved upon and developed by his father. What Qinya Haowu needed to do was to perfect his father's improved sword techniques, find his own unique sword techniques and develop them again. Qinya Haowu would inherit the honor of the light of the North Star. He was grateful to his father for bringing him to Huaxia. Stepping on this fertile land and feeling Fang Yan's existence at such a close distance, he was filled with passion and inspiration. His only hope, was that he did not die under his father's sword when his sword Dao reached great accomplishment. Qinya Haowu stood under the osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The osmanthus flowers had bloomed, but the leaves on the tree were still green. Not in good condition? Qinya Haowu said with a smile. If it's because the battle is approaching, such an opponent won't be able to withstand a single blow. Qinya Haowu stood behind her father and held his favorite teapot. She said, Father, if that's the case, can we postpone the date of the battle? Just as you said, an opponent who isn't in his best condition can't be my father's opponent. If teacher Fang Yan was given more time, he might have performed better. No. If we postpone the battle this time, he'll think he's lucky, Qin Yahawu said. The people of Wuxia often say that the first spurt of energy will weaken, and the third will be exhausted. I need him to perform his best under high pressure. Only then will I be interested in fighting him. Father, will you kill Fang Yan Hawu? Qin Yahawu asked worriedly. Qin Yahawu glanced at his daughter and said with a smile, "It's late. Go back to sleep." He took the teapot from Qin Yahawu and walked past Qin Yahawu, who was still stabbing his sword with all his might. He said, "Entertain my guest." Hearing that, Qin Yahawu immediately followed his father outside with his sword in hand. In the long and narrow alley, a black figure stood tall and straight. Seeing two figures, one tall and one short, walking toward him from afar, his eyes turned cold and he tightened his grip on his sword. Qin Yahawu stopped and looked at the black shadow. He asked in a deep voice, "Do you want to challenge him?" Chapter 240. His eyes were sharp, his expression was cold, and he was wearing a black shirt. His head was slightly lowered. He didn't look at Chiba Beryoku, but at the ground under his feet. He was holding a simple and unadorned long sword in his hand, looking like a peerless master. You could think of him as a young version of Yi Guqing or a black-clothed version of Shimin Chueshue. That is, if you ignored his round figure. "Yes. I want to challenge you," Fang Yingying said proudly. "Raise your head," Chiba Beryoku said. "What's wrong with this challenger? You always have your head down. You have to let people see what you look like and see if you're worthy of my sword." "No," Fang Yingying said with a tough attitude. If he said no, he wouldn't. There was no room for discussion. "Why is that?" Chiba Shinobu's curiosity was piqued. Could it be that this was a new fighting method that had just become popular in Wuxia? Chiba Beryoku had such a good habit. He was knowledgeable and greedy for novelty. No matter what kind of fighting method or skill it was, he was willing to appreciate it. Discard the dregs and take the essence. In the end, he took those things for himself. He gathered the strengths of hundreds of schools and achieved the glory of the God of Swords. "No reason. Just think of it as my neck sprained," Fang Yingying said. He didn't want to raise his head. Because he heard from Junior Martial Uncle that when he saw Chiba Beryoku, he had a feeling that he couldn't make a move. Since even Junior Martial Uncle couldn't make a move when he saw this old monster, he couldn't make a move. Fang Yingying thought hard and finally found a way to deal with Chiba Beryoku. "I won't look at you. I won't even look at you. Naturally, I can make a move, right?" Fang Yingying felt that he was 2F** king smart. Chiba of the army stared at Fang Yingying and looked a little dispirited. He took a sip of tea from the small teapot and said, "I was looking forward to a battle, but I didn't expect it to be two naughty kids. Come out, my little friend." Fang Haohan, who was also dressed in black, walked out from the corner of the courtyard. He angrily said to Fang Yingying, "He called me little friend. How am I small? Don't stop me, I want to fight to the death with him." After Fang Yingying came out, Qing Yin, who was dressed in black and had his entire head covered in a hat, also walked out from the shadows. He had been monitoring Fang Haohan all this while, but this guy didn't make any strange movements, so he didn't act rashly. After all, this was Wuxia and they still had some scruples. If someone dared to pry into the Sword God's family's privacy in the East Ocean, they would have been beheaded by him. Qing Yin walked up to Chiba of the army and said in the East Ocean language, "I've searched and there are no suspicious people around." Fang Yingying was very dissatisfied with Fang Haohan's attitude. He said, "Fang Haohan, I'm now in a state of battle, pouring qi into my dantian and becoming one with my sword. Don't you know that talking to me at this time will affect my fighting qi? What's more annoying is that you actually came to tell me a joke." Fang Haohan felt very wronged and said, "I'm not joking." Chiba of the army was really speechless at these two challengers. He said, "Please go back. You are no match for me." He didn't sense any dangerous aura from them, and he didn't even have the mood to fight. When he had just become famous, such challengers would come to him every day. There were at least 800 if not 1,000. Later, when he became more and more famous, those people suddenly disappeared. He didn't expect that not long after he arrived in Wuxia, there would be people from Wuxia coming to challenge him, and opponents of this level. It was extremely boring. Clang. Fang Yingying nimbly pulled out the long sword in his hand and still didn't look at Chiba of the army's eyes. He said, "Let's begin. I'm going to cut you down with my sword and establish my undefeated reputation." Qing Yin was angry and said to Chiba of the army in a deep voice, "Master, Qing Yin requests to fight." "Forget it," Chiba of the army said. He knew Qing Yin's way of doing things. If he allowed him to fight, he was afraid that neither of these two kids would go back. Killing people here was a big taboo, and there was no need to be angry over a few kids. Chiba of the army held the small teapot and turned back leisurely. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were a little dumbfounded. Chiba of the army didn't want to fight them? "Hero, what should we do?" Fang Haohan said anxiously. "If he doesn't fight you, how can I film?" "How do I know?" Fang Yingying said impatiently. Fang Yin was injured and the bullet passed through his body. Although there was no danger to his life, and it wouldn't even affect Fang Yan's normal work in teaching students. However, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, who were both from martial arts families, understood that this was a very fatal thing for a duelist who was about to fight with a master. This bullet didn't take Fang Yan's life, but it drained the blood in his body. Without vigor, how could a man be strong? Of course, if the one fighting with Fang Yin was at the level of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan wouldn't be worried at all. They were very clear that even now they couldn't beat Junior Martial Uncle. However, the one fighting with Junior Martial Uncle turned out to be a master who had entered the cliff wall stage. Ah, the cliff wall stage, such a strong person, I'm afraid you wouldn't see one in your lifetime. In this case, the impact of the bullet on Fang Yin was enough. Without a peaceful state of mind and a healthy body, without full spirit, without high fighting spirit, without a strong desire to live, how could Fang Yin win? Fang Yan's wound was bandaged by Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, and they were also diligent in changing the dressing. Fang Yingying had unintentionally probed, since the injury was so serious, could the duel be postponed or simply cancelled? Fang Yin shook his head, saying that it couldn't be cancelled, nor could it be postponed. Fang Haohan said that they might as well not go. Would he run to the school to hurt people? Fang Yin shook his head and said, "The news of my duel with the Chiba army has been spread out by people with intentions. After the Chiba army came to Wuxia, the first person they challenged was me. Now it's not just a duel between me and the Chiba army, but a duel between the Wuxia martial artists and the Japanese martial artists. I can lose, I can die. However, I have to go." Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were really anxious. Fang Yin said that he could lose, he could die. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan didn't want Fang Yin to die. The two of them thought about it and decided to find the Chiba army for a duel first. Fang Yingying acted as a meat shield and took the initiative to challenge the Chiba army, while Fang Haohan secretly filmed with a digital camera. Whether the Chiba army injured Fang Yingying or killed Fang Yingying, he couldn't show up and call the police with the digital camera. At that time, the police would arrest or deport the Chiba army, and Junior Martial Uncle wouldn't have to participate in the duel anymore, right? For Fang Yin, they were not afraid of losing, nor were they afraid of death. Their plan was exquisite, but the Chiba army was not willing to make a move at all. Fang Yingxiong bellowed as he charged towards the Thousand Leaves military department with his long sword. He was very fast and he used the Fang Plum Blossom steps with all his strength. Bang! Fang Yingying's body flew back. The Chiba army didn't make a move, nor did Qing Yin and Chiba Haohan. Fang Yingying covered his stomach and coughed violently. Fang Haohan cried out in surprise. "Miss Yi!" Yi Ro, who was wearing a black leather coat and had short hair, stood in front of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. Seeing the sword in Fang Yingying's hand and the digital camera in Fang Haohan's hand, she was even more angry. She slapped Fang Yingying's head and asked in a sweet and arrogant voice, "Did you come up with this stupid idea again?" Fang Yingying didn't dare to dodge. He hurriedly explained, "It's not me, it's really not me." Slap. Yi Ro slapped his head again and said, "How dare you lie again?" "Miss Yi," slap. Yi Ro slapped him on the head again. "Stop it, stop it." Fang Yingying howled with his hands covering his head. "I confess it's me. It's what I want. Miss Yi, stop it. I was going to confess just now." "I know." Yi Ro looked like she understood. "I'm used to it. I think it's more rhythmic to slap you 3 times. Fang Yingying opened his eyes and mouth wide. He looked at Yi Ro and couldn't say a word for a long time. "Is it necessary to beat someone rhythmically?" Seeing Yi Ro staring at the digital camera in his hand, Fang Haohan's face became even paler. He hurriedly hid the digital camera behind his back, but soon realized that it was an insult to Miss Ye's IQ. He quickly took it out and said with a smile, "Miss Yi, it's all Fang Yingying's stupid idea. In fact, I don't agree with it. I strongly opposed it, but he threatened me with force. So, I could only follow him to this side." Bang! Before Fang Haohan finished his words, his body flew out. Yi Ro clapped her hands and said coldly, Although Fang Yingying's idea is a bit stupid and he looks a bit wretched, at least he has a good mind. The Fang family raised you and taught you, but you are not even willing to make this sacrifice. Instead, you drag others down and betray your friends. If we weren't in front of outsiders, I would beat you to death. Fang Yingying nodded again and again, smiling so much that his eyes couldn't be seen. Yi-Ro waved her hand and said, "Get out. Don't let me see you again." Fang Haohan climbed up from the ground and ran to Fang Yingying saying, "Hero, she asked us to get out. This is an insult to us. Should we be angry?" Fang Yingying slapped Fang Haohan's head and scolded, "What's the use of being angry?" Influenced by Yi-Ro, Fang Yingying also liked this kind of movement of slapping people's heads. Needless to say, there was indeed a sense of rhythm when he smoked. It was very satisfying. Fang Haohan thought it was right and said, "Then I won't be angry." Chapter 241. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan didn't leave. They knew that although Yi-Ro was a fierce woman who would beat people up at the slightest provocation, she didn't come to the Ministry of War alone to have tea and chat with them. Based on Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan's low IQ, they guessed that she might have the same goal as them. She wanted to drive the Chiba military division out of China so that Fang Yan wouldn't have the chance to fight with them. Thinking of this, Fang Haohan had already thought of a way to please Yi-Ro. He walked quickly to Miss Yi and handed her the camcorder in his hand, saying, "Miss Yi, I didn't use this thing just now. I think you might need it. Here you are." Slap. Fang Haohan was slapped on the head again. Fang Yingying had just learned the trick of slapping the head from Yi-Ro, and now he was addicted to it and couldn't stop. He carefully recalled the moment when he slapped Yi-Ro. When Fang Haohan was about to lose his temper, he shouted at Fang Haohan first, "Fang Haohan, you idiot! Even if you give the camcorder to Miss Yi can't use it? Who can shoot while fighting?" Fang Haohan was stunned and said, "Then what should we do? Idiot." Fang Yingying wanted to slap Fang Haohan's head again, but Fang Haohan dodged it first. "Of course we'll use the camcorder to shoot for Miss Yi." Fang Yingying turned to look at Yi-Ro and said, "Miss Yi, do you think I'm right?" Yi-Ro's eyebrows twitched as she clenched her fists. Suppressing the urge to beat these two idiots to death on the spot, he said with a fierce expression, "You two idiots, can't you use your brain to think instead of your knees? Don't do such shameful things in the future, okay? Do you think you can kick him out of Wuxia just because you took a DV camera? He doesn't even need to do anything. His disciple will deal with the two of you. Even if you succeed and use this method to expel Wuxia back to Japan, our Wuxia martial artists will still become the laughingstock of the world, and you will also become the shame of Wuxia martial artists. In the future, don't learn from that wretched bastard junior martial uncle. Isn't it good to speak and do things with dignity? Put away your camcorders and scram as far as you can. Don't let me see you again. Every time I see you, I want to beat you up dozens of times." Thump, thump, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan ran far away and peeped at them from the corner of the yard. "You scared me to death," Fang Haohan said with his hand on his chest. He had the look of a frightened young man. "We didn't tell anyone. Why did the whole world laugh at us?" Fang Yingying couldn't figure it out. Of course, things like secretly taking photos had to be done in secret. Yi-Ro looked at Chiba of the army and said in a calm voice, "I'm sorry for the mischief of my family. They don't have the right to make you draw your sword, but I want to have a try. I want to challenge you." Qing Yin was so angry that he rushed to where Yi-Ro was standing. "Come back," Chiba of the army shouted. Whoosh! Qing Yin retreated again as if he had never left. He moved as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning. Chiba of the army looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan not far away and then at Yi-Ro. He said with a smile, "Did Fang Yin send you?" "No one sent us," Yi-Ro said. "Fang Yin doesn't know we're here." "That's true. It's hard for a person with bad intentions to achieve such a high level at such a young age," Chiba of the army said. "I know you. My daughter is studying in Rosefinch. When she came back, she said that a beautiful woman beat up Fang Yin in front of many students. That woman is you, right?" "It's me," Yi-Ro said. Chiba of the army shook his head slightly and said, "You want to hurt my body and heart of the sword so that Fang Yin can have an advantage in the battle with me?" Yi-Ro was a little unhappy. Does this old guy want to fight? If he wants to fight, then fight. Why is he talking so much nonsense? "I'm here because you're a brilliant opponent," Yi-Ro said. "We, the warriors of Wuxia, are not afraid of challenges and are willing to take the initiative to challenge stronger enemies. You want Fang Yin to practice swordsmanship for you, and I also want to defeat you to forge an undefeatable heart of the sword." "I like this answer better," Chiba of the army said. Adversity produces talents and desperation produces masters. If you're all here for Fang Yen, you don't have to. Without experiencing blood and fire, how can you have supreme cultivation and set foot on the path to the heavens? Sword, Yi Rou shouted. Whoosh! Fang Yingying threw the sword hard, and Yi Rou caught the sword in his hand. Clang! Yi Rou quickly drew the sword, looked at Chiba of the army and said, "I'll take it as a yes." Before she finished her words, she had already rushed toward Chiba of the army with a sword. Chiba of the army was excited. He liked to watch his father fight with others at such a close distance. He preferred to see his father effortlessly defeat his opponent. It was a feeling that everything was under his control. He was at ease, as though there was nothing in the world he couldn't do. This man was his father, the man he admired the most and yearned to surpass. It was a wonderful feeling. So, Qing Yin grabbed his arm, tapped the tip of his foot and leaped backward, jumping out of the combat range. He ran in a straight line. A straight strike. Just like Yi Rou's character, there were no overly flashy moves, nor were there any illusions. She simply thrust the sword at Chiba of the army. It was also because of Yi Rou's character that she was able to achieve so much at such a young age. Those with great providence were definitely people with merit. Fang Jing was straightforward. That was Yi Rou's character. This was also the reason why Old Drunkard preferred Yi Rou over his junior brother, Fang Yen, because he felt that Fang Yen was too embarrassing. However, Chiba of the army, who was known as the god of swords of Japan, didn't slack off at all. No one knew better than him that this simple strike of Yi Rou's was not simple at all. This strike went straight for the 3 vital points and 13 important acupoints on his chest. At the same time, his facial features and even his entire head were covered in the strike. 3 flowers and 1 sword, initial success in swordsmanship. 7 flowers and 1 sword, advanced to the next level. Flower rain in the sky, Grandmaster. This was the basic common sense to evaluate a swordsman. According to this standard, Yi Rou's strike didn't even have a flower, and her level couldn't even be called initial success in swordsmanship. However, if one's swordsmanship reached the realm of return to simplicity, there wouldn't even be a flower. No flower meant that the world was full of sword flowers. No illusion meant that any illusion could be created. Just as Yi Rou's long sword reached Chiba of the army's chest, Chiba of the army moved like lightning. A long white robe with wide sleeves. A white, almost transparent hand stretched out from the sleeve. It was so relaxed that it looked like a fairy brewing tea or a Buddha picking flowers. Clang. Chiba of the army caught the tip of the long sword with 2 fingers. Whoosh! Yi Rou's sprinting speed finally stopped. No sound could be heard, but the fierce chi rolled up the dead leaves and dust on the ground. They flew all over the sky like butterflies playing in the wind. Yi Rou shook her wrist and the long sword broke into 2 pieces. One piece was caught between Chiba of the army's fingers, and the other was still in her hand. Yi Rou raised her sword and stabbed again. Clang. Chiba of the army stretched out his fingers again and caught the blade of Yi Rou's sword again. Yi Rou shook her wrist again and the long sword broke into 2 pieces again. When Yi Rou stabbed for the 3rd time, Chiba of the army still caught the sword with his fingers. Crack, crack, crack. The long sword in Yi Rou's hand suddenly broke into countless pieces, and the countless pieces stabbed toward Chiba of the army like countless knives. The heavenly net was densely packed, enveloping the vital points of Qin Yibing's body. As long as any of the pieces pierced him, Chiba of the army would pay a heavy price, if not dead. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were both shocked by this scene. Fang Yingying cried out in surprise, "Did you see that? Heavenly made scatter flowers. The legendary heavenly made scatter flowers. Fang Haohan, how long has it been since you saw the real heavenly made scatter flowers?" 2 years ago, when Miss Yi competed with Junior Martial Uncle, she used heavenly made scatter flowers on Junior Martial Uncle. Miss Yi's kung fu became more advanced. Fang Haohan, who was busy filming with the DV, said, "At that time Junior Martial Uncle caught 13 pieces. The rest were all stuck on him." Fang Yingying thought in his heart, "I don't know how many pieces this old monster Chiba of the army can catch." Chiba of the army's eyes shone with a strange light. Beautiful. Without any external force at all, he only used his own internal strength to shatter the hard sword into pieces, and then used the air and wind to attack the enemy. It was impossible to guard against and dodge. Chiba of the army stretched out his hands, and his wide sleeves waved in the wind like silk. Clang. With a crisp sound, Chiba of the army's body became calm again. However, the countless sword pieces that Yi Rou had thrown out suddenly disappeared, as if they had never appeared. Yi Rou didn't give up. Her body was infinitely close to Chiba of the army. Using the last small part of the sword on the hilt, she fiercely stabbed Chiba of the army's chest. Chiba of the army's body jumped into the air for no reason, and when he was in the air, he waved his sleeves very naturally. Clatter. Silver light flashed and the sky was full of stars. The pieces collected by Chiba of the army's sleeves became his killing weapons, whistling and rushing at Yiro. They were faster and more aggressive. Those sharp blades became an orderly saber formation, and all the sharp tips were densely aimed at Yiro, who was rushing at him. Yiro could be stabbed into mud at any time, which was extremely dangerous. Chapter 242. Fang Yingying was about to rush to the scene of the fight, but Fang Haohan grabbed him. Fang Yingxiong's face and neck turned red as he roared, "Hero Fang, let go of me right now." This woman was Yiro, the eldest daughter of the Yi family. She was a close friend of their master and junior martial uncle's nemesis and nemesis. If it weren't for her, who would correct their moves and call them fools. If it weren't for her, who could beat junior martial uncle to death year after year and make such rapid progress in martial arts, from the shame of the Fang family to the shame of the Fang family, nothing could happen to her. Nothing could happen to her. If something happened to Yiro, they couldn't explain to their master, junior martial uncle, or the elders of the Yi and Fang families. They were men and they had to stand in front of this woman. This was the responsibility that Guanyin Bodhisattva Gautama Buddha gave him. You can't save her. Fang Haohan grabbed Fang Yingying's arm and wouldn't let go. Of course I know I can't save her. Fang Yingying yelled. I'm strong enough to block the sword. While Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohan were still being lovey-dovey with each other, Yiro had already prepared the counterattack that she should have. Yiro jumped high into the air with the tip of her foot. She was like a black bird sprinting high into the sky, like a rocket without a booster. She jumped very, very high, so high that ordinary people would be afraid of her. Qingyin was a ninja and he had always been proud of his speed in Qinggong. He had dominated the 37 islands in the East Ocean, and he thought he could make a name for himself in Wuxia. However, this young girl just lightly tiptoed, like a beautiful firework leaping into the sky. Did she think about other people's feelings? Qingyin, can you do it? Chiba Haomu raised his head and asked expectantly. His eyes were filled with excitement and desire. The world was vast and martial arts were magical. There were all kinds of strange martial arts and masters. He really hoped that he could become one of them. He also hoped that he could be like his father and fight to the death with the most powerful opponents in the world. This was how a martial artist should be. I can, Qingyin said. If he tried his best, he could do as well as Yiro. If he had the help of some tools, he could do better than Yiro. However, very quickly, his eyes blazed with divine light and his pupils became abnormally bright. With an excited expression he said, I can't do it. He even pulled down the hat that had been covering his head. It was a thin and shriveled middle-aged man, his face covered in scars. This is what he left behind in order to become a qualified jonin and pass the beauty array. No one's success was by chance, regardless of whether that person was a Huaxia or an East Asian. As a martial artist, they already had the spirit to sacrifice themselves for the martial Tao. In his eyes, the current Yiro could be called a miracle. When Yiro's body leaped to the highest point, she completely dodged the sweeping sword forest. Yiro's feet swayed as if she was walking in the air. She jumped above Chiba Hashirama, who was in midair, and stepped on the top of Chiba Hashirama's head. It was only an inch, but the energy brought up by it reached a radius of several meters. A strong whirlpool of air formed around her, enveloping herself in Chiba Hashirama, and then she stepped on him from top to bottom. Chiba Hashirama didn't dodge. He held his right index finger and middle finger together like a sword. The sword was full of murderous intent, and it stabbed at Yiro's foot. Whoosh! The sword energy pierced through the sole of Yiro's black leather boots and pierced the flesh of her foot. Like a huge balloon being pierced by a needle, the airflow suddenly disappeared. Yiro felt the danger. She borrowed the force of her body in the air again, rolled twice in a row and fell far away to the ground. It was precisely because of her dodge that she avoided Chiba Hashirama's next killing move. Clap, clap, clap. Yiro fell to the ground and took 3 steps back in succession. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It wasn't until then that the blade fragments pierced into the walls and tree trunks after a short flight, not even leaving a trace. Yiro frowned slightly and looked at Chiba Hashirama more fiercely. This old monster had entered the state of being one with his sword. He was the sword and the sword was him. There was no part of his body that wasn't a sword, and there was no part of his body that wasn't a sword. He killed people with sword energy and he killed people invisibly. Chiba Hashirama's body landed gently, neither too fast nor too slow, and his movements were as smooth as flowing water. In this round, Chiba Hashirama won a small victory. You want to kill people, Yiro said. Death and injury are inevitable in a competition, Chiba Hashirama said with a smile. Either you step on my dead body to achieve supreme glory, or you become a dead soul under my sword. Who cares? I don't understand. There are so many masters in Wuxia and there are so many eccentric hermits. Why do you have to fight with Fang Yan? With your cultivation at the absolute wall stage, his chances of winning are slim. Is it really because he is an opponent worthy of your sword? Because he is an opponent worthy of my sword, Chiba Hashirama said calmly. His attitude was very firm. There are many people worthy of your sword. Tao addict Song Zaniang, martial addict Ho Jindong, nation master Li Zonghao, and hermit Weed of Weed Temple in the south. Which one of them is not a first-class master in the world? Aren't they worthy of your sword? Chiba Hashirama, you bully the weak with your power. Yiro pointed to Chiba Hashirama, who was not far away, and asked, Is that your son? Yes. He is Chiba Hashirama, Chiba Hashirama said calmly. If I challenge him and set up a fight to the death, what will you do? Yiro sneered. What's the difference between your behavior and what I'm going to do? If he admits defeat, the death will naturally be solved. If he accepts your challenge, then he must go all out. Chiba Hashirama looked at Yiro and said, Miss Yi, I understand what you mean. You think I'm looking for Fang Yan to avenge my son and vent my hatred for my disciple, right? If he is willing to admit defeat, this competition will be cancelled immediately. Yiro was silent. She knew that Fang Yan would not admit defeat. He could admit defeat to her or even lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. He could admit defeat to the old drunkard. In order to force the old drunkard to teach him drunken crane riding the wind, he cried, made a scene, and asked him to be his master. After his plan to hang himself in front of the old drunkard failed, he threatened to secretly pee in the old drunkard's wine jar. But when did he admit defeat to others? When the Bailey family challenged him, even if he was beaten badly, didn't he grit his teeth and persist? The Tang family and the Fang family had been enemies for generations. The two families often fought each other. He was surrounded and beaten into a dumpling. He was beaten unconscious, but he didn't admit defeat. Wasn't admitting defeat to the Japanese Chiba Shinobi division even more difficult for him to accept than killing him? Miss, fighting with the heavens is endless joy. Fighting with the earth is endless joy. Fighting with others is endless joy. This is what you Wuxia people say. Have you forgotten it? Chiba Hashirama comforted her with a smile. It's rare to see a Dao querying expert. Please forgive me for my eagerness to hunt. So, Miss, please do your best in the next battle. Yiro stopped talking and took out a dragon head dagger from her waist. Of course this wasn't a real dagger. She pulled the dragon's eye with both hands, and the bright dagger flew out of the dragon's head. Between the dragon's head and the dagger was a rope with dragon scales on it. Dragon whip. Yiro held the dragon's head in her hand and shook her wrist. The dagger on the whip tip flew toward Chiba Hashirama not far away. The dragon scale rope was made of an unknown material. It let out a sharp dragon roar. The whip moved like a long knife or a sharp sword, cutting through the air and making a hissing sound. This time, Chiba Hashirama didn't wait for the weapon to reach him to intercept it. He stretched out his body and flew toward Yiro. His long hair and loose robe fluttered in the wind. He looked like an immortal descending to the mortal world. He ignored the whip tip that was aimed at the major acupoints on his chest. Even when the sharp blade came, he only flicked his finger. Clang. With a crisp sound, the dagger lost its aim and flew to the side. At this moment he had already rushed into the inner palace and entered Yiro's defensive range. He slashed his palm toward Yiro's neck. His palm was also a sword, and the sword energy was shocking. Whoosh. Yiro shook her wrist again and pulled the dagger back, stabbing it toward Chiba Hashirama's heart from behind. At this moment, Chiba Hashirama could cut off Yiro's neck with his palm, but he would also be pierced by Yiro's dragon whip. He could either dodge or die together. This was Yiro's deliberate plan to hurt both sides. Chiba Hashirama looked at Yiro. In order to express her determination, Yiro closed her eyes at this critical moment. Chiba Hashirama knew that this girl was ready to sacrifice herself. When two people met on a narrow path, only the one who was not afraid of death could take advantage. Chiba Hashirama sighed softly and his figure became illusory. Clap. He slapped Yiro's chest. The dagger that was about to stab into his back did stab into his heart, but it went through his heart again. What the dagger stabbed was only his illusion. His movements were too fast, and even when he had already left, his body was still in the same place without any change. His body disappears and your eyes deceive you. Puff! Yi Ro spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward in the air. Chapter 243. It was too fast and too urgent. Fang Yingying realized that the situation was not good and rushed over to pick her up. She was about to hit the ground halfway. Whether it was Qinya of the Ministry of Arms or Yi Ro, their full speed was not something that ordinary people could catch up with. Fang Yingying wasn't weak, but he was still several levels below them. This had nothing to do with hard work but talent. Some people were born to be martial arts geniuses. Bang! A black figure rushed over from behind Fang Yingying, stepped on his shoulder and leaped over his head. He jumped up high and caught Yi Ro's body, who had lost control of her body, and held her in his arms. A cool breeze blew, and the moonlight shone leisurely. Yi Ro opened her eyes and saw Fang Yan's worried eyes. Her beautiful eyes were instantly filled with anger, and she said angrily, "Why are you here?" "Why are you here?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "I'm here to challenge the Thousand Leaves Military Department," Yi Wen said. "I also want to challenge the Thousand Leaves Military Department." "He's the one I want to challenge. This is my battle. What are you doing here?" Yi Ro was furious. This feeling was too embarrassing. It was just like when he was a child and suddenly wanted to steal his cousin's makeup box to put on makeup for himself. In the end, he found a pair of eyes peeking at him from the window halfway through. She flew into a rage and her eyes disappeared with a grin. From then on, she had the nickname Monkey King. She swore that she would beat up Fang Yan every time she saw him. "Miss, are you being reasonable?" "Alright, I know you've always been unreasonable. But first come, first served, right?" Fang Yan explained patiently, "He is my opponent. Even if you want to challenge him, you'll have to be behind me." "Who set the rules for queuing?" "I want to challenge him now, I'm willing. If you're not convinced, hit me." This woman was always like this, making it impossible for people to talk to her nicely. All they wanted was a good fight. Before Fang Yingying could have the time to think, how could Fang Haohan run faster than me? He heard Fang Haohan shouting "Junior Martial Uncle" from behind. It turned out that youngest martial uncle was here. Fang Yingxiong finally stopped his running fat body with great difficulty and sprinting forward. If Junior Martial Uncle came, then there was nothing for him to do. Otherwise, if Junior Martial Uncle misunderstood that he wanted to steal his woman, then it would be big trouble. After all, who would be willing to have a handsome rival by the side of the woman they like? Bang! Only then did Fang Yan land with Yi Ro in his arms. "Put me down," Yi Wen said. "You're hurt. Put me down." Yi Ro became even more domineering. Ignoring him, Fang Yan looked at Chiba Baryoshi and said, "My wife and children are immature and have caused you trouble. I'm sorry. I'm afraid of losing and death, but I'm most afraid of retreating. I'll be there on time for the Battle of One Sword Peak. Don't worry." Fang Yan smiled at Chiba Baryoshi and walked back with Yi Ro in his arms. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other and followed him cautiously. Chiba Baryoshi stood there, looking at the backs of Fang Yan and the others with a worried expression. Chiba Baryoshi and Qingyin walked over, and Chiba Baryoshi said happily, "Father, you won again." Yes, his father won again. He had won countless times since he was old enough to understand things. He had witnessed some of the battles with his own eyes, but most of the battles had become stories and legends. His father was the sword god of Japan, a figure deified by Japanese warriors. Winning was a habit for him. So was Chiba Baryoshi. Chiba Baryoshi didn't respond. He just stood quietly in the cool breeze under the moonlight. "What are you worried about, master?" Qingyin asked. Chiba Baryoshi was still a child after all, and Qingyin was more mature and sharper. "I won and Japan lost," Chiba Baryoshi said. "How can one person's victory offset the loss of a country?" "Father, master." Chiba Baryoshi and Qingyin were confused. They didn't know why Chiba Baryoshi said that. If he won, it meant that Japan had won. Because he was the pride of Japan, one of the representatives of Japanese warriors. How could the Japanese have lost? "In Japan they call me the sword god. Everywhere I go they worship me," Chiba Baryoshi said in a low voice. He didn't feel very proud because of this. Chiba Baryoshi smiled and said, "Father, that's the supreme honor you earned with your own strength. You deserve it. Father has always been my goal, and also the goal of thousands of Japanese warriors." Chiba Baryoshi shook his head and said, "That's what I'm worried about. When they see me they all keep quiet and worship me like a god. But that's not what I want. I want them to have the courage to draw their swords against me. In Japan, no one has the courage to draw their swords against me. In Wuxia I've already met two. Even the two men who don't dare to look me in the eye have the determination to die, Chiba Baryoshi said. Japan lost. Chiba Baryoshi looked at his father with more love, and Chinyin looked at his master with more respect. Chiba Baryoshi served the country and the people. The hatred of the country and the hatred of the family was the future of a martial artist. Even the man who was the Japanese sword god could not abandon all human emotions. He would love because he loved and hate because he hated. Now, he was worried about the young man's desire to die and the martial arts heritage of Japan. Chiba Baryoshi turned around and said, "The brave are fearless. Let's work hard together." Only then did Chiba Baryoshi and Chinyin notice that there was a small hole in the back of Chiba Baryoshi's clothes. With their sharp eyes, Chinyin and Chiba Baryoshi could see the dazzling red line. The two of them sucked in a cold breath at the same time. "Father, are you hurt?" Chiba Baryoshi cried in surprise. As far as he could remember, he had never seen his father get hurt. Never had. The sword god is still a human. How can a human not be hurt? Chiba Baryoshi's calm voice came. Rosefinch High School. In the courtyard of the villa. "Take off your clothes," Fang Yen said. "No," Yiro said. "Take off your clothes." "No." "Yiro, have you noticed? When we talk we have to say the same thing several times." Fang Yen looked at the unreasonable Yiro helplessly and said, "I noticed." Fang Haohan raised his hand happily, feeling proud of his smart brain and wise eyes. Slap. Fang Yingying slapped his head and scolded, "You idiot, it has nothing to do with you. They are flirting, why are you getting involved? From now on shut your stupid mouth." Yiro stared at Fang Yen with sharp eyes and said, "Fang Yen, don't think you can take advantage of me because I'm hurt. You may not be my match in a fight." "Who wants to fight with you?" Fang Yen said angrily. "You're hurt. You're bleeding. You were slapped by that old psycho from Chiba Baryoshi. I have to see where you're hurt so I can apply medicine for you." "What does it have to do with you?" Yiro said with disdain. She pushed Fang Yen away and said, "Don't put your face too close to me. I'm afraid it will affect my appetite and aggravate my injury." Then she turned around and was about to leave. "Yiro, stop the F***ck." Fang Yen shouted. He felt that his little universe was about to explode. What kind of woman is she? Is this kind of woman still a woman? Can you be affectionate just for once? Can you be humble for once? Can you be infinitely shy for once? Isn't it said that injured women are the most vulnerable? That old psycho from Chiba Baryoshi clearly slapped her, but why is she still so strong? Yiro suddenly turned around and shouted, "Fang Yen, what did you just say?" Fang Yan's heroic appearance suddenly disappeared and he said timidly, "I said please wait. Even if you want to leave you have to take the medicine I gave you." He winked at Fang Yingying. Fang Yingying ran into the room and took out a bottle of powder from Junior Marshal Uncle's private collection. After thinking for a while he took out 2 more bottles, then 3. "I'll tell my mom what you just said," Yiro said. Fang Yen felt that this woman was too vengeful. Fang Yen gave the powder to Yiro and said, "Apply half of it externally and take the other half with water. You will be fine as long as all the clotted blood is drained out." Yiro hesitated for a while, grabbed the bottle and turned around and walked into the darkness. Fang Yen walked her to the door of the small courtyard and sighed as he looked at Yiro's back. The two of them always used this strange way to get along. If they didn't quarrel or beat each other, they didn't know what to do. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan came over and Fang Yingying said, "Miss, you saved us. If she hadn't gone in time, Fang Haohan and I wouldn't have been able to come back. She's a good person." Miss Yi didn't want to stay because she was worried that she wouldn't have a place to sleep at night. Fang Haohan added. Fang Yen just remembered something and turned around to look at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan with a sneer. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were scared, and their legs were trembling. Fang Yingying said hurriedly, "Junior Marshal Uncle, I think I was hurt by the sword energy today. I'll go back and apply some medicine. I'm sleepy too." Fang Haohan was also quite smart and he turned around to escape. Fang Yen quickly blocked in front of them, and both of his hands were flying, slapping Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's heads non-stop and scolded, "You two idiots, leave the fighting to the women. Why did you run over there? You two uneducated guys, do you know how to write the word, death?" Chapter 244. Junior Marshal Uncle, don't fight. You can't fight anymore. Fang Yingying yelled while covering his head. You just called me an idiot. If I continue to fight now, I'll be a retard. If I had known earlier, I would have fought with the old monster of the Chiba army. Even if I was killed by him with a sword, I would still be proud if I died like this. Fang Yen sneered and said, "You want to fight with the Chiba army with your mediocre skills? Others are fighting with their lives, but you're going to die. You just want to say that Miss Yi is better than us." Fang Yingying said anxiously. After saying that, he immediately realized what a stupid thing he had said. He hurriedly said, "Of course, your way of thinking is completely correct. Who is Miss Yi? She is a first-class master in Wuxia. She is invincible in the world. Except for junior martial uncle who can last 3 rounds with her." Fang Yen was too lazy to fight these 2 rascals anymore. He asked Fang Haohan to get water for him to wash his hands. These 2 guys hadn't washed their hair for a long time. Their hair was greasy and Fang Yan's palms were covered with that sticky substance. "What? Do you think being killed by the Chiba army is something to be proud of?" Fang Yen looked at Fang Yingying and asked. "I didn't mean that," Fang Yingying explained with a smile. "In my beautiful imagination, of course, it would be more glorious if I killed the Chiba army. But we can't do it. Last time, Junior Martial Uncle said that he couldn't make a move when he saw him. I even laughed at Junior Martial Uncle in my heart for exaggerating and saying that the old guy was too powerful." Pah! Fang Yen couldn't help but slap Fang Yingying's head again and scolded, "What right do you have to laugh at me in your heart? Can you judge more accurately than me with your greasy eyelids that can't see 3 meters away?" Yes. Fang Yingying nodded again and again. He said the wrong thing again. This slap was worth it. Junior Martial Uncle is right. I had a little doubt before, but after I practiced it myself, I found that the old guy was just standing there casually. I didn't know where to attack him. Is this the master of the wall stage? Isn't he too powerful? Of course, young Martial Uncle's foresight is even sharper. Even though it was the first time he met him, he already knew everything about him. Fang Yen shook his head and said with a wry smile, "If I was really that powerful, would you and Fang Haohan risk your life to fight him?" Fang Yingxiong opened his mouth and said, "We asked him to risk our lives because Fang Haohan and I felt that how could we use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? It's a waste of resources. Fang Haohan and I will get rid of him first so that after Junior Martial Uncle defeats him, others will say that you are bullying the weak. It's not worth it." Fang Yen washed his hands in the basin that Fang Haohan brought over. He looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan seriously and said, "I know that you are worried that I can't beat the Qinya army. You are worried that I will be injured or even die. So you 2 idiots went by yourselves. With your mediocre skills, wouldn't it be a dead end if you went? You haven't reached that level yet, so there is no way to know how powerful the Qinya army is. Even his disciple will be a rare opponent for you. You are afraid that I will be injured, afraid that I will die. Am I not afraid that you 2 will be injured? Am I not afraid that you 2 will die? This is my battle and my responsibility. Since he came to me, even if I die in battle, I will keep my promise. This has nothing to do with my personal honor or face. It is for the dignity of all the warriors in Wuxia. If I lose, there will be another person who will challenge me. If I die, there will be another person who will come out to avenge me." Fang Yen patted Fang Yingying on the shoulder and said, "But I don't want the next person to be you because I know that you will lose and die. You just need to live like this. Even if I am gone, you can still take care of my parents and the old drunkard for me. So, you are more valuable alive than dead. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Don't die so easily." Fang Yen turned and left, leaving Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan in a daze in the courtyard. Fang Haohan was emotional. His eyes were red and tears flowed out. He said in a choked voice, "Fang Yingying, I want to kill those bastards. Why did they bully Junior Martial Uncle?" Fang Yingying also cried. He looked even sadder than Fang Haohan. Fang Haohan looked at Fang Yingying and comforted him. "Hero, don't worry. Junior Martial Uncle will be fine. His martial arts are so good that the old monster might not be able to defeat him." Fang Yingying wiped his tears with his sleeves and said, "Junior Martial Uncle used my clothes to wipe his hands. The water dripped onto my neck." It was still early winter in Huaqing, but winter in Yanjing was already extremely cold. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at the fewer leaves on the locust tree, and they felt better and better. After a while, it should be snowing in Beijing, right? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were both from the south. It was Jiang Qin's first time walking out of Huaqing. Yuan Lin spent most of her time in Huaqing, apart from occasionally accompanying her parents to the north in spring and autumn. So, the 2 of them had actually never seen real snow. So, they had been looking forward to the arrival of the first snow of the year. They were looking forward to making snowmen in the snow, having snowball fights, and even hugging the person they liked in the snow. Jiang Qin was wearing a white training suit, while Yuan Lin was wearing a black one. The slim and soft training suit outlined the girl's figure extremely well, causing the two boys next to them to keep peeking at them. The two boys were Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's classmates, and they could be regarded as fellow apprentices. After Mao Xianping, who became famous after successfully training Xia Tian, retired from the music academy, he specially took a practice room in the school to train his disciples. Before Xia Tian sent Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin here, there were already two guys who were one step ahead of him. The tall and thin guy was called Guinu, the son of the famous domestic film and television star Guo Qingyun. He inherited the excellent genes of his parents and was very handsome. The other boy, who looked very gentle and elegant with glasses, was called Huang Yida. He usually looked very low-key, but he always had a superior arrogance. No one knew what his family background was. An old man with slicked back hair was lying on a chair with his eyes slightly closed, looking like he was about to fall asleep. Jiang Qin's body was sitting in front of a guzheng, his body slightly leaning forward, his fingers gently fiddling with the guzheng. The sound of the guzheng was clear and pleasant. "Stop!" Mao Xianping suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly. Jiang Qin quickly stopped and looked at Mr. Mao Xianping helplessly. She knew that she had played something wrong again. Mr. Mao Xianping was very strict with his apprentices, and he treated Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin equally. He did not care about their feelings when he reprimanded them. "Jiang Qin, do you know where you went wrong?" Mao Xianping jumped up from the chair, walked to Jiang Qin and asked. Jiang Qin thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, I don't know." If you said you didn't know, the teacher would be angry. If you answered wrong, the teacher would be even angrier. Therefore, Jiang Qin chose an answer that would not make the teacher angry. "What song did you play?" "Zen Heart of Clouds and Water." "What is Zen Heart of Clouds and Water?" The sound of the guzheng was like the gurgling of water, the sparse shadow of the bamboo forest, and the reflection of the spring stone. From the sound of the guzheng, we need to understand the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. I know that you are a new student, so I don't ask you to play the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. But tell me, where are your clouds? Where is the water? There are no clouds and no water. How can it be called Zen Heart of Clouds and Water? Jiang Qin looked ashamed and said, "Mr. Mao, I'm sorry. I was too anxious." Mao Xianping's face softened a little and he shouted, "Guinu, give us a demonstration." Guinu walked to Jiang Qin and said with a smile, "Mr. Mao, don't be angry. Junior sister has just come here, and it's already very good for her to achieve such a result. When I first came here, I was not as good as them. At that time you were so angry that you hit me with a stick. Have you forgotten?" Guinu looked at Jiang Qin again and said, "Junior sister, don't be nervous. The teacher is strict with you because he has too high expectations for you. If it were an ordinary student, it would be very good if he could learn the skill of plucking and know the whole music score in this period of time. How dare I ask him to play a complete song?" Jiang Qin was very grateful to Guinu for helping her out. She gave the chair to Guinu and said with a smile, "Thank you." Guinu smiled and sat down in front of the guzheng. After adjusting the rhythm of his heart, he gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi, and then his fingers gently stroked the strings of the guzheng, and a beautiful tone jumped out. It had to be said that Guinu was indeed a bit talented in guzheng. The room was very quiet and everyone was listening carefully. You could see the clouds and water, see the harmony of the clouds and water, and hear the solemn Buddha voice. At the end of the song, everyone applauded warmly. Bao Xianping pointed to Guinu and said, "There are some flaws. Clouds and water flow slowly, not too fast. If you use too much force, it will not be beautiful." Guinu quickly stood up and said gratefully, "Thank you for your teaching." Bao Xianping looked at Jiang Qin and asked, "Do you understand?" "Understood." Jiang Qin nodded. Mao Xianping was very satisfied with his disciple's studious attitude and said, "It's good that you understand. The ancients pay attention to having a well-thought-out plan. If you have wind and clouds in your heart, then the music you play will be able to create a storm. You are very talented and I hope you can go further on this path." "Thank you, teacher." Jiang Qin sincerely thanked him. Mao Xianping waved his hand and said, "Okay, go eat." After Mao Xianping left, the students began to pack up their things and went to the bathroom to take a shower and change their clothes. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin changed into sweaters and down jackets and walked out, Guinu and Huang Yida were already waiting at the door. Guinu stood up and took the initiative to greet the two girls. He said, I just discussed with Ida. Although we are brothers and sisters, we haven't even had a chance to have a meal together after being together for so long. Teacher must be very sad if he knows that our relationship is so estranged. It's me and Ida who didn't do a good job. Two little sisters, how about giving me some face and having a meal together today? Chapter 245. When school reopened, it was normal for new classmates to gather together for a meal. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just entered middle school, Yuan Lin, the rich little girl, took 6 girls in her dormitory to eat at Pizza Hut. A meal that cost a few hundred yuan was really not a negligible amount of money for a middle school student. According to the relationship between the teacher and the teacher, the relationship between Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, Huang Yida, and Guinu was closer than that of their former classmates. Because the 4 of them were disciples of teacher Mao Xianping. They were not only classmates but also fellow apprentices. In the future they should help and take care of each other when they entered society. One must know that in the current entertainment circle, the proportion of students who graduated from the 2 famous schools, Shangying and China Film, was extremely high. They hugged each other and there were many small circles in the big circle. It was easy to become popular by helping each other and hyping each other. Guinu was the senior apprentice brother, so he naturally had the responsibility and obligation to organize the meal. Moreover, he was very good at talking and he even brought up teacher Mao Xianping. If Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin still refused at this time, it was really unreasonable and inexplicable. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and Jiang Qin said with a smile, "Okay. This should be done. My treat. What do you want to eat, little sister?" Huang Yida put on a cool face, and his forthright manner when he spoke was very likable. "It doesn't matter what we eat," Jiang Qin said with a smile. "However, we have to invite teacher Mao. Just now, senior apprentice brother Gui said that this is our first gathering. If we don't invite teacher Mao to such a meaningful gathering, how sad will he be?" "Invite the teacher?" Guinu and Huang Yida had a look of rejection. "Who would want to eat with the teacher?" "Yes, we like to eat with the teacher," Yuan Lin said happily. The eyes of the 2 girls became bright. The teacher they liked to eat with was called Fang Yan. "I'll make the call." After Jiang Qin said that, he took out his phone from his pocket and dialed Mao Xianping's number. Mao Xianping had just separated from his students. He was a little surprised to receive a call from Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were recommended by Xiachen. He valued Xiachen a lot and he valued Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin as well. After listening to Jiang Qin's words, Mao Xianping smiled and thanked him, but he still refused the students' invitation to dinner. He was a very famous musician in the country and had endless social engagements every day. Tonight's dinner had been arranged a week ago. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Qin put his mobile phone into his small bag. He looked at Guinu and said, "Senior brother Gua, teacher Mao has no time tonight. Ask us out next time. Then let's eat first." Guinu looked regretful, but he was overjoyed in his heart. "That's not good," said Jiang Qin. "Since teacher Mao said next time, let's wait until next time. Yuan Lin and I are going to meet a friend." Yes. We made an appointment in advance." Yuan Lin nodded repeatedly. "Senior brothers, I'm sorry." The 2 girls jumped away. Guinu and Huang Yida stood in the same place and looked at their backs in a daze. "What a smart little girl," Guinu said with a smile. "She's young but she has a lot of ideas. She refused us and left us speechless. This is treating us like wolves." Huang Yida said with a bad face, "Teacher Mao doesn't have time but they don't have time? Teacher Mao isn't here and they don't even have the guts to have a meal with us?" Guinu looked at Huang Xianping with a smile and said, "Are you a wolf?" "What about you?" Huang Yida asked. "The revolution has not yet succeeded. Comrades still need to work hard." The 2 waved their hands and walked in opposite directions, one on the left and one on the right. Dead leaves fell and a thick layer of leaves piled up on the ground. Not knowing whether the cleaners were too lazy or deliberately adding a touch of romance to the autumn, no one swept the leaves into the trash can. Therefore, the campus couples held hands and stepped on the leaves, making clicking sounds. Every step made people feel happy and joyful. The naughty girl ran on the leaves and with a kick of her toes, countless leaves flew all over the sky. Jiang Qin also liked to kick the leaves. Every step she took, she stepped deeply, and then kicked the leaves in front of her toes out. It was as if she wanted to kick out the troubles in her heart. "You don't like them?" Yuan Lin took Jiang Qin's hand and walked quietly on her right side. "What?" Jiang Qin was thinking about her own thoughts and didn't hear her friend's words clearly. Yuan Lin was a little angry and raised her voice and said, I asked you if you don't like Guanyu and Huang Yida. Jiang Qin thought about it and said, it's not that I don't like them, but it's not that I like them. You probably don't like them? Otherwise, why did people say that you refused to have a meal with your classmates? Yuan Lin, you didn't notice that when you were playing the zither, Huang Yida looked at you with a strange look? I noticed it too. When you were playing the zither, Guanyu looked at you with a strange look. It was as if he blinked his eyelashes and there would be tenderness and honey falling out. I thought I was the only one who had such a feeling. It turned out that you also had. Jiang Qin looked at Yuan Lin and said, we are still young, don't think about love. Since we chose to learn classical instruments, since teacher Fang Yan and sister Xia Tian have such high expectations for us, then we must do our best and not let them down. Yuan Lin sneered and said, teacher Fang Yan doesn't have any expectations for us. He said that if we can't hold on, we can pack up and come back at any time. It's not necessary to become a musician. But sister Xia Tian has great expectations for us. She is still learning the zither and she works harder than us. If the object of love is Fang Yan, you won't say that you are too young to fall in love, right? You damn girl, I'll tear your mouth. Jiang Qin angrily rushed towards Yuan Lin. The two girls played in the leaves for a while and then walked side by side again, panting. It's strange, Jiang Qin said. When I was at school, I always felt that those boys were too naive and not as mature as teacher Fang Yan. Now that I'm here, I feel that Guanyu and Huang Yida are really boring to put on airs all day. I think so too. Yuan Lin nodded. Why do I always find them unpleasant? I want to rush up and beat them up. Alas. The two girls sighed softly. I don't know when I can see teacher Fang Wei again, Jiang Qin said. It's the first time I've left home and it's so far away. I really miss Mom's braised pork, Dad's dumplings and Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang said that he is from Yanjing. When the students are on holiday he will come to see us, Yuan Lin comforted. Mr. Fang said that he should solve problems with his head in the future. You did a good job just now, Yuan Lin said. What does he use to solve problems? Fists. The two girls looked at each other and then laughed. Jiang Qin stopped talking, and Yuan Lin also became silent. Hand in hand they walked towards the bustling streets. That way they could show that they were not too lonely in this city. Number 3. Lu Jing, go and stop number 3. Number 28 is going to make a layup, stop him. Huang Haoran, go. In order to cultivate students' moral, intellectual and physical development, the school often held some competitions. The current one was the Rosefinch Senior High School Interschool Basketball Competition. This was the first round of the preliminary competition. According to the rules, the first, second and third years would each send a team to compete for the title of the school champion. Fang Yan ran to the office to draw lots, but he drew the 9th class and the 11th class, which had the highest basketball level, together. The 11th class was a special enrollment class. What was a special enrollment class? It meant that the students had a special skill and could be admitted to Rosefinch Secondary with extra points. Some were good at drawing, some were talented in music and some were good at calligraphy. Of course, most of them were good at sports, because during the recruitment test if you say you can draw well then you have to draw well. If you said you were talented in music then you had to shout. If you said you were good at calligraphy, then you had to write a beautiful essay. However, if you said you were good at sports, as long as you were strong enough, then you had extra points. As a result, several big guys and 8-meter-tall men appeared in class 11. When they walked together, it was a beautiful scene in the school. It was a tough game. Class 9 didn't have any good basketball players to begin with, and they couldn't miss school activities either. The team of 5 was barely made up by Fang Yan. The only substitute was only able to make up the team because of his height. He said he couldn't play basketball, but Fang Yan didn't believe him. Or rather, he didn't want to believe him. He tried it on the court and when he got nervous he ran away with the ball in his hands. Fang Yan had to believe it. It was only the third quarter, and the score was already more than 30 points. 58-12. The 9th class 21 points were almost all scored by Huang Haoran alone. He wasn't tall and he was very short-sighted, but his three-point shot was very beautiful. Huang Haoran got the ball again, sprinted and jumped. Fang Yan clenched his fists. He knew that as long as Huang Haoran had a chance to get the ball, he would be able to get the 3 points. Although Fang Yan knew that they were going to lose this game, he didn't want it to end here. He could teach anything, but he would teach his students to give up. Huang Haoran, come on. The cheerleaders finally got a little bit of spirit. They were also stunned by the 11th class. The gap was getting bigger and bigger, and their voices were getting smaller and smaller. Finally there was no sound. If it weren't for Fang Yan's strict discipline, they wouldn't want to watch anymore. Huang Haoren raised his arm and his wrist gently hooked. Bang! A giant appeared in front of him and slapped the ball on Huang Haoren's face. Huang Haoren's body fell on the solid concrete floor and he didn't move. Chapter 246. While the others were shocked and at a loss, Fang Yan had already run toward Huang Haoren. He didn't casually carry Huang Haoren's body. He just squatted down and shouted, "Huang Haoren! Huang Haoren!" Huang Haoren finally opened his eyes. With a painful expression on his face he said, "Teacher, he broke the rules." He wanted to raise his right hand to show Fang Yan, but he couldn't lift it. His back hurt badly as if his spine was about to break. Fang Yan didn't need to lift it up to see that Huang Haoren's right hand was purple and red. Even his wrist was swollen. Obviously the guy slapped the back of Huang Haoren's hand. Because he used too much force, Huang Haoren's wrist couldn't bear the heavy pressure and sprained it when he fell to the ground. "He's bleeding, he's bleeding." The students of the 9th class gathered around and looked at Huang Haoren, who was lying on the ground with concern. The back of Huang Haoren's head was smashed, and the blood stained the dark cement. It looked a little shocking. It was good that he could talk. Fang Yan picked up Huang Haoren and said, "I'll take you to deal with it." In order to do a good job of protection, the school doctor patrolled around several competition courts. Seeing an injured team member, he immediately went to the court to treat him. The team doctor was invited by the students. After checking Huang Haoren's wound, he said, "It's no big deal. He still knows how to protect himself." When he fell to the ground his head was stiff. But the injury on his back is serious. "I'm afraid he'll have to rest for a few days." Fang Yan checked Huang Haoren's spine. There was no danger of fracture or dislocation. He said, "It's good that he's fine. It doesn't matter if he rests for a few days." After being busy for a while, Huang Haoren was escorted to the infirmary by the study commissary to disinfect and rest. Fang Yan looked at the bulky student who had slapped Huang Haoren and was now drinking coke and laughing with his teammates. He walked over and slapped the bulky student's head. Li Hu was angry and shouted angrily, "Why did you hit me? Injuries are unavoidable in a basketball match. I didn't do it on purpose. What right do you have to hit me? So what if he was a teacher? Does that mean teacher can beat people as he pleases?" Tiger Li's teammates were also very angry. A few big guys surrounded Fang Yan in the middle. If there was any disagreement they would press him down in the middle and give him a beating. Science and technology were getting more and more advanced, but the reverence students had for their teachers and knowledge was getting weaker and weaker. In this day and age, if you dared to run in front of any student and say, "Teacher for a day, father for life," they would spit apple juice at you and call you an idiot. "You want to be my father? It's more like I am your father." Fang Yan's face was very calm. He looked at Tiger Li and said, "I hit your head not because you injured your classmate. Of course, I am really angry about you breaking the rules and injuring your classmate. If you say you didn't mean it, I believe you. However, even if you are playing against each other because of your foul, a classmate fell to the ground and got injured, shouldn't you go over and help him up and apologize? He is not my teammate. He is your classmate, not your enemy. Even if you are standing on the same court, it doesn't mean that you are life and death enemies. Because of your foul, a classmate is lying on the ground bleeding. You are drinking coke and joking with your classmate. Because the person lying on the ground is not you, the person who is bleeding is not you, so you can have a clear conscience and act without any scruples? I was angry and hit you because of this reason, not because you said it was an unintentional foul that caused a student to get injured. Mr. Fang, what you said is too much." A middle-aged man wearing a Rockets jersey was sitting under a tree. He was dismissive of Fang Yan's words. "It is normal to get injured in a basketball game. Even in the NBA, don't big-name stars often get injured and have to have surgery? They're still kids, so it's understandable that they don't think about things as comprehensively. If you use your own standards to demand things from them and then use your identity as a teacher to beat someone up, do you believe that I'll go to the school and report that you're physically punishing students?" The person who spoke was Gu Sini, the homeroom teacher of class 11. He is also a basketball enthusiast and usually fights with people. From his outfit today, it can be seen that he should be a die-hard supporter of the Rockets. Gu Sini doesn't like Fang Yan very much. The first reason is naturally because of jealousy. They were all the homeroom teachers of the Year 1 students. Why was it that they were unknown while the newcomer, Fang Yan, stood out from the rest and his name was known by everyone in the school? Moreover, the school leaders asked Fang Yan to give a lecture to the first-year students. This is undoubtedly a slap in the face of all the first-year teachers. In the eyes of the school leaders, he is far better than the teachers. What was even more depressing was that the total score of Class 9 was not that far behind that of Class 11, but after Fang Yan's arrival, Class 1's Chinese and literature became the first in the whole grade, even surpassing Class 1, the top class. Their scores in other subjects also improved significantly, and their overall score was ranked in the top 5 in the whole school. The school leaders said at the teachers' meeting that it is not just the number of the class that is ranked at the bottom. Look at Class 9, isn't it a good example? The faces of the homeroom teachers at the back of Class 9 darkened on the spot. It is not that they don't work hard. They also want their students to be in the top 3 in the whole grade. However, how can it be so easy? When you are working hard, others are also working hard, okay? The homeroom teachers in front of Class 9 looked even more embarrassed. What does this mean? At that time, the students were divided according to their grades. Now the students at the back of the line are in front of them. Doesn't this mean that they are incompetent? At that time, Fang Yan was also sitting at the meeting, and he could feel the murderous look in everyone's eyes. The Norwegian fishing boat returned to the harbor, but the sardines caught by the fishermen were already dead. Only the sardines caught by Hans were still alive. It turned out that Hans put a few catfish, the natural enemy of the sardines, into the transport trough together with the sardines. Because catfish eat meat, the sardines became nervous after being put into the trough. In order to avoid being eaten by their natural enemy, the sardines desperately swam, thus preserving their strong vitality so they survived. If the other teachers are compared to sardines, then Fang Yan is the catfish in the fish trough. The school leaders hope that Fang Yan can stir up the competition in the school even more, and Fang Yan does not mind being such a catfish. If every teacher thinks about how to improve the academic performance of the students will benefit in the end. This is also what Fang Yan wants to see. Gu Xini hates Fang Yan more than the other teachers, because his uncle was implicated in Fang Yan's incident and was transferred. Gu Xini's uncle, Gu Yunfan, is the logistics director of Rosefinch Secondary, which is the most lucrative position in the school. This is because when Fang Yan entered the school, he assigned Fang Yan a utility room with a leaky roof. In fact, Fang Yan really did not take this matter seriously, and he has never even seen Gu Yunfan. However, after a series of power struggles and changes in ownership, Rosefinch High is now owned by the former vice principal, Lu Chaoga. After Lu Chaoga left Rosefinch, Fang Yan became Lu Chaoga's spokesperson in the school. Moreover, there are rumors that Lu Chaoga is the mysterious woman behind Fang Yan. Therefore, Gu Yunfan's position as the logistics director is not suitable. After the school leaders' research and adjustment, Gu Yunfan is now the vice chairman of the school's education committee. A position with a low level, low salary, and almost no authority. Gu Yunfan is holding back his anger in his heart, and scolds Fang Yan several times at home. Gu Xini is Gu Yunfan's nephew, and he can enter Rosefinch because of Gu Yunfan's support. Without such a big backer, his heart naturally hates Fang Yan. Fang Yan feels Gu Xini's hostility towards him, but he thinks that he is too good to be pleasing to the eye. Who asked him to be the natural enemy of sardines? Fang Yan looked at Gu Xini with a serious face and said, "Teacher Gu, you can't say that. A great person said that education should start from a child, and the quality of students should be taught from an early age. This has nothing to do with the student's age, and it has a close relationship with whether he has the quality of unity in helping each other. Melt at the age of 4 and Huang Xiang at the age of 9 know how to use the fan to warm the quilt." Teacher Gu said that NBA teams often have players who get injured because of fouls and need surgery, but I have also seen players pull up players who don't belong to the same team from the ground. Can't they just pull up their classmate and say hello out of concern? If this is the case, what is the point of us working so hard to pass on knowledge to them? What is the point of such students to our society as a whole? Hearing Fang Yan's words, the other students also echoed in agreement. Yes. This is clearly a performance of lack of quality. This is not playing basketball at all, this is beating people. Huang Haoran's hand is swollen from their beating. The students of Class 9 also gathered around. Tang Qing stood behind Li Hu. As long as Fang Yan gave him a look, he could put down this group of guys in the shortest time. Gu Xini knew that his students couldn't stand on the side of reason, so he said angrily, "Li Hu is wrong. Didn't you already teach him a lesson? Now it's a basketball game, do you still want to play? If you want to play, quickly send someone up. If you don't play, we will win this game. Who wants to talk so much with you?" Tang Qing. Fang Yan shouted. Yes. Tang Qing responded and walked in front of Fang Yan. You go up. Fang Yan said. I don't want to? Tang Qing said with a bitter face. It's boring to play with them. Isn't this bullying? I want to win this game. Also from now on don't let them take a single point. Fang Yan said. If they don't realize their mistake I will never give this victory to them. Gu Xini sneered and said, basketball is a sport for 5 people. So what if Tang Qing plays well alone? Chapter 247. Tang Qing made a 3-pointer from the distance. Swish. The ball went in. Tang Qing dribbled the ball past people. He passed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoosh. The ball went in. Tang Qing jumped up and dunked. 2 people jumped up from the left and right sides to intercept. Li Hu roared, don't even think about it. He jumped up from the front and used his strong body to hit Tang Qing. Clang. The ball went into the basket fiercely. Li Hu's body was knocked to the ground. Until this time Tang Qing's body landed lightly on the ground. He flipped his hair back in a carefree and unrestrained manner, not even a drop of sweat falling down. This made Tang Qing feel a little regretful. If he shook his hair to shake off a few drops of sweat, the effect would be better. Of course for him this was enough. Tang Qing. Tang Qing. Tang Qing. The cheers of the students almost overturned the court. Tang Qing's name resounded throughout the campus. There were also countless students rushing towards the court. Of course most of them were girls. Tang Qing was originally Rosefinch's most handsome boy, but he was usually low-key. He rarely showed his talent in any aspect. Today, under the pressure of Fang Yan, he ran to play basketball. Then the girl's blood and passion were instantly ignited. Handsome facial features, strong body, extreme speed when running, elegance when dribbling the ball, dominance when doing a slam dunk. God, how could there be such a handsome boy? They fainted. The girls felt that they had difficulty breathing and lost all their strength. Tang Qing was originally unwilling to play. As a warrior who practiced internal martial arts, he felt that playing basketball with these guys was bullying. This was also the reason why he was absent from this game. Before, Fang Yan did not think of letting Tang Qing play because Tang Qing would lose his competitive spirit when he played. He could win the whole game by himself. The existence of other teammates was meaningless. At that time, this competition would become his own game, and it would be quite boring for the others to play. However, after Huang Haoren got injured, Fang Yan decided to teach those who didn't know how to respect others a lesson. If they don't reflect on their actions, they don't deserve the glory of victory. Sure enough, after Tang Qing left the stage, the situation became one-sided. Li Hu fell to the concrete floor under the blue net. The basketball fell from the blue net and landed heavily on his body. Li Hu gasped for air, feeling his heart beating fiercely. He looked at Tang Qing with fear in his eyes. It was too terrifying. It was too terrifying. He couldn't stop him if he wanted to, couldn't catch up to him if he wanted to, couldn't jump high if he wanted to, and couldn't win if he wanted to. This was the first time he felt so powerless on the court. They were like a group of children, and Tang Qing was like a giant among a group of children. Although they looked stronger and taller than Tang Qing, they were not on the same level as Tang Qing. Tang Qing alone was enough. Tang Qing did it alone. This was the thought of everyone in the stadium. When the ball was in their hands, Tang Qing sprinted and the ball was in his hands. Then he ran quickly and left them in the dust. Finally, he scored successfully. When the ball was in Tang Qing's hands, Tang Qing ran quickly. They couldn't catch up with his speed at all, and then they watched him score successfully. In the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, Tang Qing scored 39 points alone. He almost didn't waste time. He took the ball and ran, grabbed the ball to attack, didn't look at the long shot and turned and ran after the shot. When Li Hu and the others were still staring at the trajectory of the basketball and praying that the ball wouldn't go in, he had already run to the side to defend. The only thing the Class 11 players could do was to waste more time when they were serving or dribbling the ball. They wanted to finish the third quarter as soon as possible. It was too exciting and they felt that they couldn't bear it. Moreover, as Fang Yan said after Tang Qing played, the Class 11 players didn't get a single point. Except when they were serving, they didn't even have a chance to touch the basketball. The muscles on Gu Xini's face twitched and he roared angrily, "This is cheating. It's cheating with Kung Fu." Fang Yan sneered and said, "You don't even know what Kung Fu is and you say it's cheating? Ordinary people can't do it at all." "Yes, Kung Fu is to make ordinary people superhuman," Fang Yan said. "Strengthening the body is also Kung Fu. Improve your speed, exercise your physique, strengthen your jumping ability. As long as Tang Qing doesn't foul, everything he does on the court is reasonable." possible, I hope that every player in the Chinese football team knows Kung Fu. Then, they can go out of Asia to the world and win every World Cup. At that time, will the opponents from other countries say that it's a foul just because they know Kung Fu? Unreasonable. Gu Xini left angrily. He didn't want to watch the game anymore. Fang Yin looked at the Class 9 students around Tangqing thoughtfully. It seems that it's time to let them develop morally, intellectually and physically. In the principal's office, Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Fang Yin and said, "It's just a game, the students are injured, it's not good." "It's because the students were injured, that's why I'm so angry," Fang Yin explained. "Principal Zhang, you know I'm not a stingy man. Even though Director Gu assigned me a utility room, I never held a grudge against him. I didn't expect that they would hold a grudge against me. Isn't this unfair to me? How can there be absolute fairness in this world?" Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. "Tell me, what do you want to do?" "I want to change the morning self-study time to sports training," Fang Yin said. Zhang Xiaofeng pondered for a moment and said, "The school has 2 PE classes every week, and there is a break every morning. Principal Zhang, 2 PE classes a week is absolutely not enough. It doesn't improve the student's physique. Everyone should be lazy during the 20-minute break, and it's easy to be perfunctorily passed by them. What's your idea?" "I want to take them to learn Tai Chi," Fang Yin said. "Tai Chi has a good effect of strengthening the body, and the movements are gentle, neither too fast nor too slow. It won't let the students do difficult movements and cause strain. It can dredge the meridians, eliminate stress, concentrate the spirit, and improve the student's learning ability." Zhang Xiaofeng thought for a while and said, "I can't promise you, because it's too risky. Even if I'm the principal of the school, I don't have the right to change the students' learning subjects at will. However, you can try it in Class 9. If the effect is really obvious, we will report it to the leader and promote it to the whole school." "Thank you, Principal Zhang," Fang Yin said. This was the purpose of his coming. He didn't think about implementing it to the whole school at once. There was always a gradual process of doing things. After Fang Yin left, Zhang Xiaofeng sat on the chair and thought for a while. He called the secretary in and said, "Please invite the vice principals to my office to discuss the job transfer of Comrade Gu Yunfan." Gu Yunfan secretly held a grudge against Fang Yin. Gu Xini, because he didn't like Fang Yin, actually took the initiative to provoke the students of the 2 classes. This made Zhang Xiaofeng very dissatisfied. Presumably, Fang Yin also had a lot of anger in his heart. Although Fang Yin didn't put forward any suggestions on how to deal with Gu Yunfan, it seemed that nothing had happened. However, since Lu Chaoge put him in this position, he would help Fang Yin solve some unnecessary troubles. Fang Yin said that he wasn't a stingy person. However, in Zhang Xiaofeng's heart, he didn't believe Fang Yin's words. Where there are people, there is Jianghu. Where there is Jianghu, there is fighting. The school was no exception. The next day after the game, during the students' morning reading time, Fang Yin took the students to the playground to run. Fang Yin's plan was to run for 10 minutes to exercise, and then take the students to learn Tai Chi in the rest of the time. Fang Yin, who was dressed in white, took the students in white to run and practice Tai Chi, which once again became a hot topic of discussion in the school. 1 tael of gold for 1 incense. The best incense was more expensive than gold. The office was spacious but also simple. There wasn't even a desk, a chair, or even a bookcase. Most of the space was blank. However, in a copper stove in the corner of the room, spices that were more expensive than gold were burning. A graceful and beautiful young woman was lying on a chair, casually flipping through a fashion magazine. The office door was pushed open, and a woman in black walked in with her head held high. She didn't say a word and just handed over the folder that she had prepared in her hand. The young woman took the folder and glanced at it. She said indifferently, "No matter how cunning a fox is, it can't hide the stench on its body. Give the kid a copy of the folder." The woman in black was stunned and said, "They dared to make a move on Mississippi, don't we need to directly eliminate them?" The woman closed the magazine in her hand and put it on the table in front of her. She said, "Aren't we already doing this? But he's only one person. If he can't even do this kind of thing well, what right does he have to bear my daughter's love?" The young woman asked. "Etienne has never been wronged like this before, never. If he were to take revenge, Etienne would probably be happier, right? What woman doesn't want the man she likes to kill the demon that imprisoned her?" "I understand." The woman in black responded and left with the folder. The young woman stood up and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. The light was bright and beautiful, and her temperament was otherworldly. However, her eyes were bitingly cold and fierce. She was very angry. Chapter 248. Are you saying that you and Chowga aren't in that kind of relationship? Grandma looked disappointed. She had only taken 2 bites of the porridge in her bowl, and she had already lost her appetite. Putting down her bowl and chopsticks, she looked at Fang Yen eagerly, waiting for him to explain. No. Fang Yen shook his head. He was having a good time himself. He used to be afraid that his grandpa would pull him into the study to test him on strange knowledge and talk about principles that he would never understand. After Fang Yen became a teacher himself, he no longer had to worry about that. Grandpa would still test him on some obscure knowledge and talk about principles that would never go out of style. However, he no longer had any feelings of rejection or fear. If he could answer the questions, he would answer them properly. If he couldn't, he would humbly ask Grandpa for advice. He no longer hated the principles that he had disdained before, and he could even chew on some of them. Fang Yen reflected on the question carefully and tried to find the answer. The answer he came up with surprised even himself. He had grown up. In the past, when he faced his grandfather, he avoided it with the mentality of a child of the younger generation. Every kid was afraid of their elders. Now that he was facing his grandfather, he was interacting and treating him as an equal adult. How can I not be? Said his grandma. Chowga is such a good girl and I like the 2 of you from the bottom of my heart. Do you not like her or does she not like you? If she doesn't like you, you can try harder. A good girl is afraid of a clingy man. That's how your grandpa got me. Lu Wang, who was eating his porridge, choked. After coughing violently a few times, he said to his wife in dissatisfaction, "Let's talk about the children. Why are you bringing up our old stuff?" Grandma was very angry that Grandpa had called the old story of how he had pursued her in the past. She took away all the dishes on the table and said, "I'm just giving an example. Why are you so sensitive about it? The things in the past were all old seeds and grains. But today the old seeds and grains were not going to serve you. I'll be taking these appetizers away, you can let the new sesame seeds and new grains serve you." You old woman. Although Lu Gong had a stubborn temper, he was extremely tolerant and considerate to his wife. He didn't smile at outsiders, but he accompanied his wife to go grocery shopping every day. Now that his wife was angry, he also realized that he had said something wrong and said, "Why should we get involved in the affairs of young people?" Lu Gong was very cunning. He changed the topic to Fang Yen and Lu Chaoga. Sure enough, his grandmother was fooled and said, "Can I not get involved? I've always treated Chaoga as my granddaughter-in-law, but she's gone just like that. Who wouldn't be angry after encountering something like this?" She then stared at Fang Yen and said, "I wasn't before, but that doesn't mean I won't be in the future. You're not married and neither is little Lu. Just as well. If you don't like her, I'll have to talk to you. You don't even like Chaoga? What kind of person are you looking for?" After a pause, his grandmother looked at Fang Yen in horror and said, "You can't possibly like that female student, right?" "What female student?" Fang Yen was surprised. "Don't try to fool me. I've asked around. It said that you have a good relationship with a girl whose surname is Qin. Fang Yen, let me tell you, she's still a child. You're a teacher now and a teacher should act like a model. Don't hurt others or yourself." Fang Yen wanted to bang his head against the wall and said, "Grandma, I know who the female student you're talking about is. But I just treat her as my student and she treats me as her teacher. We have a very pure teacher-student relationship." Was it really like that? Fang Yen felt a little guilty. Moreover, there had been no news from Qin Tian since that day when he disappeared. Was she doing well? Fang Yen felt a little sad. "Is it really like that?" His grandmother asked suspiciously. "I heard it from someone else's mouth. I heard that you two have a scandal. I also have a scandal with Lu Chaoga. You must have heard it too, right?" Fang Yen said grumpily. "Yes, I heard it. Your grandpa and I thought you two were a couple because of the scandal," his grandmother said. "Besides, you're living in the same house. Why can't you be a couple?" "I'll ask Chaoga to come to our house for dinner tomorrow and I'll talk to her," his grandmother said. "You don't have to worry about it." Fang Yen felt even more depressed. How could he not care that his grandmother was looking for a wife for him? However, he wouldn't argue with his grandmother. He just needed to make things clear. Why should he make things too intense and hurt the old lady's feelings? After dinner, Fang Yen ran away in a panic. He was no longer afraid of his grandpa but of his grandmother, who kept urging him to solve the problem of his life. Every morning he would take his students for a morning run, do Tai Chi, go to class on time, go to Qingfeng Tea House for tea and go to his grandpa's house for dinner. Fang Yan's life was peaceful and comfortable. As the days went by, it was hard to notice the passage of time. If it weren't for the fact that the decisive battle between Fang Yan and the Chiba army was getting closer and closer, Bailey Lu came. When Fang Yan came back from his grandma's house for dinner, he was standing in the yard waiting for him. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, the two cowards, were accompanying him. Fang Yan didn't want to ask him how he avoided the security at the school gate and accurately found the courtyard where he lived. It was not a difficult thing for people like them. He was just curious about why Bailey Lu, who had been beaten by him last time, now took the initiative to wander in front of him. Seeing Fang Yan come in, Bailey Lu grinned. His hair was cut and his clothes were changed. He no longer looked like a savage who ran out of Shenangjia, and he didn't have the disgusting sour smell on him. He looked fresh and bright when he smiled, and he looked like a very attractive man. However, he still had those annoying big mustaches. Bailey Lu saw Fang Yan come back and said, "You're finally back." Fang Yan looked him up and down and said, "You've cut your hair and changed your clothes? I don't remember that you won against me last time. Going back on your word is not what people in Jianghu do, right? Last time, I stood on the top of the mountain and shouted at you for a long time. I asked you to go up and fight with me for 300 rounds. You didn't go up. So I won," Bailey Lu explained. "You've become shameless." Fang Yan sighed softly in his heart. How could a disciple of a famous martial arts school become such a rascal? "I learned it from you," Bailey Lu said with a proud face. "After learning it, I found that being a rascal is much more relaxing and pleasant than being a good man who keeps his word. I've decided to take this kind of rascal route in the future." Fang Yan was too lazy to talk to this guy who followed him and ate his dust. He asked, "Say it. What are you doing here?" "I'm here to challenge you," Bailey Lu said. Fang Yan's eyes turned cold and he said, "Are you serious? I'm standing in front of you. How can I not be serious?" Before Bailey Lu's voice died away, he had already rushed towards Fang Yan. Since he wanted to be a rascal, he would be a rascal to the end. Attacking first without greeting was the style of a rascal. Bailey Lu did not bring his big wine pot this time, but his fists were waving vigorously. A pair of iron fists were clenched and smashed towards Fang Yan's head. One punch could probably smash Fang Yan's head into pieces. Fang Yan also took the initiative to rush towards Bailey Lu. He did not use the advantage of Tai Chi to overcome hardness with softness. Instead, he met force with force and wanted to send Bailey Lu flying with a heavy punch. Boom, their fists collided. Bailey Lu's feet did not move, but the shoes under his feet rolled up the bluestone bricks on the ground. The bricks flew in the air as if there was something on the ground that pushed them up with great force. Clang, Bailey Lu's back knocked down several pots of flowers and plants. Fang Yan's body trembled as he watched. This guy had to beat him up. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain to Lu Chaoga, the woman who was crazy about flowers. Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan, who was standing in the same place and looking at him angrily. He laughed wildly and said, "That was fun. Let's do it again." As soon as his voice fell, his body rushed towards Fang Yan again. Fang Yan was not polite. His body rushed straight towards Bailey Lu. Bailey Lu's fist hit Fang Yan's chest, and Fang Yan's hook hit Bailey Lu's stomach. Although Bailey Lu had the title of Divine Fist, his strength was not as good as Fang Yan's. Bailey Lu's body retreated, and Fang Yan closed in step by step. Seeing that Bailey Lu was about to retreat to the corner of the courtyard wall, Fang Yan kicked out with lightning speed. Clang. Bailey Lu's body hit the courtyard wall firmly. Kacha kacha. The dust on the courtyard wall shook off and then a large number of cracks appeared. Fang Yan's fist was still pressed on Bailey Lu's stomach, and he pushed back heavily. The courtyard wall collapsed and a big hole appeared. Bailey Lu was actually punched out of the courtyard by Fang Yan. Dust flew and even the plants on the wall fell. Bailey Lu fell to the ground, and the bricks and various green plants that fell later buried his body. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan both gasped at the same time. This was a school. Was it really okay for them to fight like this? Fang Yan did not stop. He lifted the well cover in the courtyard with both hands and threw it at the stone mountain where Bailey Lu was lying. Boom! The well cover was too heavy and it crushed a lot of bricks and plants. If it was an ordinary person, his bones would have been crushed. This big well cover was on the top, which was equivalent to burying Bailey Lu alive. Chapter 249. The pile of stones was silent, as if Bailey Lu had been killed by the heavy manhole cover. However, Fang Yan was still vigilant. Even Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan did not believe that Bailey Lu had been killed by Junior Martial Uncle just like that. They stood behind Fang Yen and looked at the movement under the pile of stones from a distance. Boom. It was earth-shattering. The patio cover on the top suddenly bounced up and flew high into the sky with the whistling sound of the wind. The bricks that covered Bailey Lu's body also flew up, entangling and hitting each other. A huge body stood up straight from the ground. With a kick of his feet he jumped high into the air. Bailey Lu did not let them down. He jumped very high and grabbed the patio cover that was about to fall from the highest point. He held the patio cover with both hands and moved his feet in the air. He rushed towards Fang Yen who was standing in the yard. He flew over the courtyard wall and held the patio cover with both hands. He rode on the clouds and rode on the mist with great momentum. The patio cover was his weapon of attack. He was going to use the cover to kill Fang Yen directly. Whoosh! The wind was howling and the broken branches on the ground were blown up. Fallen leaves fluttered in the air like countless butterflies dancing around Fang Yen. Fang Yen stood where he was and prepared to take this attack head-on. Fang Yen, go to hell! Bailey Lu roared. He took advantage of the situation from above. He swung the patio cover and smashed it hard towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yen punched upwards with both of his fists, and both of his fists landed on the manhole cover. Clang! Fang Yan's body became shorter for no reason. The stone slabs under his feet could not withstand the strong gravity and were crushed into powder by him. Not only that, under the constant pressure of Bailey Lu in the sky, Fang Yan's body continued to drill into the soil. Now he was up to his knees. Fang Yan's 2 heavy punches landed on the patio cover, and 2 large holes appeared on the cover. His hands were pierced through the holes as if he had made a natural chain for himself. Bailey Lu was suspended in the air, and his whole body was pressed against the patio cover. He wanted to punch Fang Yan's whole body into the soil. Exerting all his strength, he found it impossible to do so. Therefore he swung his fist and smashed it against the patio cover. Fang Yan was a nail and his fist was a nail. He was going to hammer the nails into the soil with a hammer. Fang Yan retracted his fist and punched again. Clang! Both of them swung their fists at the patio at the same time. The patio cover instantly shattered into tiny stones, and the place where they punched was also smashed into stone powder. Fang Yan's body sank again, but Bailey Lu's body was punched into the sky. Fang Yan threw the half-stone cover in his hand toward Bailey Lu in the sky. Then he exerted his strength and his whole body bounced up from the deep pit. He tiptoed and flew toward Bailey Lu who was about to land. Clang! Fang Yan kicked Bailey Lu away. Bang! Bailey Lu punched Fang Yan's stomach, and Fang Yan's body flew into the air. Crack! Fang Yan lifted Bailey Lu's body and smashed him against a sweet-scented osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The osmanthus tree broke, and Bailey Lu's body fell to the ground with most of the branches. Bailey Lu's face was swollen, and his eyes were like panda eyes. There was a big cut on his forehead and blood dyed his cheeks and neck red. Fang Yan was also in a sorry state. His clothes were torn and tattered. He looked like a freshly baked Brother Sharp when he went out. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were afraid of getting involved, so they hid in the room and didn't dare to come out. They just peeped at the fight through the window. Fang Yan and Bailey Lu fell to the ground, panting. The blood on Bailey Lu's forehead flowed into his mouth, but he didn't intend to wipe it off. He said, I know you were injured some time ago and I know you're angry. I know you need to vent your anger to face the challenge of the Qinyar army. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan can't do it. They're not strong enough. I'll come over and fight with you. I'll let you beat me up. Do you feel better now? You've vented your anger, haven't you? We're on the same side and it's just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. Even the Japanese dared to bully us. We can't be careless about this. Beat them until even their mothers can't recognize them. There's nothing I can do to help you. I'll give you some confidence. Bailey Lu got up from the ground and said, I usually think you're annoying but this time I hope you win. Bailey Lu walked away. Bailey Lu was covered in wounds. It was hard to tell where his nose and eyes were, but he held his head high and chest out, as if he were the proudest man in the world. If he hadn't leaned forward and almost fallen when he crossed the threshold of the small courtyard, he would have been a very charming chivalrous man. Fang Yan lay on the ground and didn't get up. He looked at the stars in the sky with a happy smile on his face. His body was also covered in wounds, but at this moment he was extremely calm. Fang Yingying called home to ask for help, but it was Yi Ro who came, which proved that his family was still very angry at him for running away. Yi Ro was seriously injured in the fight with the Chiba barracks. Fang Yan knew how powerful Yi Ro was. He had never won in so many years of competition, which could prove a lot of things. Even Yi Ro couldn't beat him. How high was the kendo cultivation of the Chiba barracks? Could he really beat him? Zhang Yuan was attacked by the arsenal. Qin Yitian's life was unknown, and he was shot and bleeding. They didn't give him any information about Qin Yitian, but they sent him a document. They wanted to kill all the people in the document by himself. Fang Yin was very tired. He was also very scared. He was afraid of losing and death. He was also afraid that he would be laughed at because he couldn't beat the Chiba barracks if he lost and died. He was such a proud man. He wanted to escape and refuse. He wanted to hug the thigh of the Chiba barracks and say, "I have a good family and will soon have children. Can we not fight?" However, he couldn't do that. He could do that to Yi Ro, to Bailey Lu, to the old drunkard, to Tangqing, to anyone in Wuxia, but he couldn't do that to the Chiba barracks. As Bailey Lu said, if they fought among themselves, it was just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. However, if he lost to the Chiba barracks, then the reputation of all the men in the martial world of Wuxia would be tarnished. If he escaped, then all the men in Wuxia would be disgraced. Therefore, Fang Yin wouldn't give in at all. He not only wanted to win, but he wanted to win fair and square. He was going to fight with his life. He was going to gamble with his life. However, he was also very, very angry. "The Chiba barracks, you bastard, you big turtle, you old monster, why did you come to me? Why didn't you choke to death when you drank water? Why didn't you eat too much? Why didn't you walk to death? Why didn't you cut off your head when you practiced swordsmanship?" Bailey Lu came at the right time and it was necessary. After this battle, he felt refreshed. Now he didn't care about his family's attitude or Qin Yitian's physical condition. No matter what, he had to complete the task given by the Qin family. There was only one thought in his mind: to defeat the Chiba barracks. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan finally came out. When they saw the big hole in the courtyard wall, both of them showed expressions of lingering fear. This made Fang Yin very regretful. Why did he give them the words heroes as their names? It was such a good word, but it had been ruined by these two cowards. Junior Marshal Uncle was lying on the ground, and they didn't dare to stand. Fang Yingying was lying on the left side of Fang Yin, and Fang Haohan was lying on the right side of Fang Yin. Fang Yingying said, "Bailey Lu is a good person, but his character is a little bad." Bailey Lu said that Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were not good enough because they were not strong enough. This sentence offended both Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. They decided that they would never play with a guy like Bailey Lu, who spoke ill of others in front of others. Actually, Fang Yingxiong and I also thought of sending ourselves up to be beaten up by little Uncle Master. However, we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to appease little Uncle Master's anger after being beaten up. "Heroes, heroes?" Fang Yin looked at the brightest star in the sky and said, "Tell me honestly, do you think I can defeat the Chiba barracks?" Fang Yingying said without thinking, "Of course. In my heart, Junior Marshal Uncle is invincible. Not to mention the Chiba barracks, even if the father of the Chiba barracks came, he would be killed by Junior Marshal Uncle with one slap." "I know. You mean that I can only beat the father of the Chiba barracks, right?" Fang Yin asked. You had to listen to the words of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan skillfully. Otherwise you wouldn't understand what they meant at all. Fang Yingying touched his nose awkwardly and said, "Anyway, I think Junior Marshal Uncle must win." "I think so too," Fang Haohan echoed. Fang Yin sighed softly and said, "You don't think that I can beat the Chiba barracks? Otherwise, why would you go and use that kind of trick on him? I am your Junior Marshal Uncle, so you have to stand on my side and cheer me up. Yi Ro thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so she came. Bailey Lu also thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so he came. My parents, grandpa, and the old drunkard all think that I can't beat the Chiba barracks. So they didn't say anything. Everyone thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, but no one stopped me from fighting him. They don't want me to die, but they can only watch me die. To be honest, I'm not angry at all. If the Chiba barracks challenged Yi Ro wouldn't have backed down. If he challenged Bailey Lu wouldn't have backed down. As long as he challenges the warriors of Wuxia, no one will back down. Martial arts are in the East, and the martial soul is in Wuxia. This is not stupidity but pride from the depths of our bones. Yes, we are so proud. Even if they were to die in battle, they would not show any signs of retreat or fear towards them. These things should only be shown on them. Fang Yingying, Fang Haohan, if I die, don't be sad for me, Fang Yin said softly, his face shining. Because I will die with pride. Fang Yingying's eyes were wet and he said in a choked voice, I know, I won't be sad, I will be proud of Junior Marshal Uncle. Fang Haohen's face was full of tears, and his hands tightly grasped the grass on the ground, turning the fresh grass into grass pulp with a fragrant smell, and said, "Junior Martial Uncle, you are Mayan hero's idol in the past, in the future, and always." Fang Yen nodded with satisfaction and said, "That's it. Practice hard and help me take care of my parents. Don't think about challenging the Chiba barracks to avenge me. If you have the chance, kill his son, Chiba barracks." Chapter 250. Death is like a lamp going out. This saying is wrong. A lamp could be lit again if it was extinguished, but if a person died and was lit, they would become a jar of bone ash. Therefore Fang Yen cherished his life very much. Whoever wanted him dead, he would make them die a horrible death. Since there was no way out, then he would move forward with a fearless attitude. Fang Yen knew that if he died, he would definitely die. Yi Gentle would immediately challenge the Chiba military, then Bailey Lu or Madman Bai from the Bai family, Ho Zhendong or anyone else. It would be fine if the Chiba military lost, but if they won, they wouldn't be able to return to Japan alive. Although he was unlucky, the fate of the Chiba military division was even more miserable. After understanding this, Fang Yen became happy again. With the knot in his heart resolved, Fang Yen became the normal Fang Yen again. Fang Yen was knowledgeable, witty, and incisive. Plus, he knew how to motivate his students. In his class, there was endless laughter and cheerful chatter. All of the students liked Fang Yan's classes. Even the language teachers who attended his classes a few times had to admit that Fang Yen was indeed a very good teacher. Fang Yen tried not to look at the back row of the classroom because there was an empty seat there that was very eye-catching. The weather was getting colder and colder, and the students had all changed into winter clothes. In another 2 months, it would be winter vacation, and Fang Yen was about to end his first semester of classes. When the bell rang, the students went out to exercise. After taking a sip of tea, Fang Yen walked to the back of the classroom and sat down beside Chiba Kaori. Chiba Kaori had a sweet appearance and a gentle personality. She wore the custom-made rosefinch uniform, which was very lethal. Although Chiba Kaoru had not been here for long, she was rather popular in school. Some people said that she was the second most beautiful girl in Rosefinch High School. Except for Qin Tian, no one was more beautiful than her. Some people thought that she was even prettier than Qin Tian, because Qin Tian's aura was so strong that they didn't dare to approach him. However, Chiba Kaori was more like an ordinary person. At the very least, they wouldn't feel pressured or nervous when talking to her, and they even dared to joke around with her. Who would dare to joke around with Qin Tian? Fang Yen took Chiba Kaoru's beautifully packaged Chinese textbook and asked, "Is there anything you don't understand?" "There are many things I don't understand." Chiba Kaori shook her head. The main problem was the language barrier and the cultural differences between countries. Of course, after I understood the meaning of that paragraph, all the problems would be easily solved. It'll just take a little more time. Because you came from Japan, you have to learn more things and put in more effort. Fang Yen said in a calm and gentle voice, like a teacher discussing learning problems with his students. Of course, that was the truth. I know that your real hobby is the tea ceremony and you put most of your energy into it. This isn't a bad thing. On the contrary, I hope that there will be more students like you in our class. Only when you love something to the bone will you be willing to sacrifice your most precious time and unfathomable sincerity for it. Only then can you become the most outstanding talent in this field. Become the king. If you just want to improve your tea ceremony skills, you only need to learn from Qin Tian or other tea ceremony experts. You don't need to waste time learning Chinese, mathematics, and Huaxia's politics and history that you're not interested in at all. I've seen your papers and I can tell from your handwriting that you hate them. But you did it. You don't just want to learn the tea ceremony, you also want to solve a question in your heart. What kind of Huaxia's culture can give birth to a talent like Qin Tian? Yes. Chiba Kaori didn't deny it. Teacher, I have to go back to Japan eventually. When I return, I will become a tea ceremony master and a teacher. I will explain to them the long history of Huaxia's tea ceremony culture, as well as historical allusions that I'm not interested in, and what we should learn and comprehend from them. Not only do I want to improve their skills, but I also need to enrich their brains. I'll never forget the scene when I had a tea competition with Qin Tian. She came over in a domineering manner and gave me her rootless water without hesitation. She wasn't afraid of losing to me and she never thought about losing to me. I was stuck in a dead end and couldn't get out. I always thought that her tea ceremony cultivation was higher than mine, and her skills were better than mine. Later, I realized that she was more confident than me. That kind of confidence came from her beautiful appearance, from her noble temperament and huge aura, and even more so from her knowledge and cultivation. This was truly invincible. She's been nurtured by 5,000 years of culture. How can I defeat such an opponent? Fang Yan's eyes lit up. He knocked on the table with his finger and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Chiba Kaori." "Thank you," Chiba Kaori said with a smile. "Mr. Fang, you're a proud person. You're not afraid that I'll take away your knowledge and culture. Every expression and every action of yours is telling me, we're no match for you. It's infuriating and exasperating." "Chiba Kaori, you don't understand. We have 5,000 years of cultural accumulation. We have fertile land that extends as far as the eye can see. We have 3 billion people with great talents. I'm just a small pearl among them, but we have many more seeds that people are looking forward to. They're taking root, sprouting, and will soon grow into towering trees. You can take away my knowledge, but you can't take away all of Wuxia's knowledge. You can take away the culture that you can see with your naked eyes, but you can't take away the culture that flows in our bones and blood." Fang Yan said proudly. "This is Wuxia's soul. As long as this soul exists, Wuxia will always be able to stand among the world's most powerful countries. We're not afraid of the wind, the rain, or the storm. As long as we're given a bit of soil and a bit of opportunity, we can take root and sprout into the most beautiful flower. Look around you. Look at your feet. Isn't that the truth?" Chiba Kaori's expression dimmed, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at Fang Yan with a burning gaze and asked, "Mr. Fang, you just said that only when you love something in your bones can you disregard everything for it. Do you love martial arts?" "Yes," Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. "For a long time I hated it. I even wanted to abandon it and distance myself from it. However, because I'm a woman, I had no choice but to approach it and understand it. However, recently I suddenly understood that I love it. I love it beyond redemption. It's because I care too much that I have higher expectations of myself. Rather than others being disappointed in me, it's more like I'm disappointed in myself. Since the moment I was born, it's been a part of my body. This is my destiny and also my luck." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chiba Haomu was still practicing his sword thrust. Day after day, month after month. It started at sunrise and ended at moonset. If it were any other child, they would have gotten tired of the monotonous movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. If it were any other parent, they would have gotten tired of the movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. He stood behind Chiba Haomu and saw every single sword strike that Chiba Haomu made. "Part of my body? It's destiny and luck," Chiba Haomu mumbled to himself. His silhouette was infinitely elongated under the moonlight. "Father, I think Mr. Fang has changed a lot," Chiba Kaori said. "Some time ago he was very depressed. Although he still taught us as usual, we couldn't laugh at what he said. He couldn't laugh either. He was like a weirdo with a mountain on his back. Every step he took was very difficult. Now we're laughing again in his class and he's laughing as well. He gives off the feeling that he's in high spirits. When he walks, it's like he's floating." "He's not afraid anymore," Chiba Haomu said. "Has he ever been afraid?" "Yes," Chiba Haomu said. "He's afraid of losing, afraid of dying, afraid of losing face, losing his own face and losing the face of his peers. Everyone is afraid, including me." "How could father lose?" Chiba Kaori asked in surprise. Because she was too shocked and didn't lower her voice when she spoke, even Chiba Haomu, who was focused on his sword practice, was attracted by their conversation. Chiba Haomu stopped practicing and walked to his father, Chiba Haomu, and said, "Father will never lose. Because I've never lost before." "Never?" Chiba Haomu smiled and shook his head. "No one is born to be invincible. I've lost before and I've lost more than others. It's just that you don't know. But I won't lose to Fang Yan," Chiba Haomu said stubbornly. He had a deep hatred for Fang Yan, and he had always wanted to take revenge. If the invincible god of war in his heart lost, it would greatly affect his confidence. Chiba Haomu looked at his children and his disciple, who was hidden in the darkness, and said, "Previously, I had a 70% chance of winning this match. Now I only have 60% left. I'm very happy that he finally cast aside his fear and became my true opponent." "Father." Chiba Kaori was stunned. "Did he ask me to bring these words to you on purpose? Did he do this to affect your state of mind?" "Yes." Chiba Haomu nodded. "He asked you to say to me, 'Come, I'm ready'?" Chiba Haomu turned and walked into the house. Chiba Haomu asked, "Father, where are you going?" "Cleaning my sword," Chiba Haomu said. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.